bad as we expected. The temperature's rising slightly, and the atmosphere here is absolutely fantastic. I mean, this is a great day for female distance running. You know, it's only 20 years ago when the marathon was allowed in the Olympics. Women weren't even allowed to run a marathon 30 years ago. So they've been battling for the centre stage, and here today we've got the two fastest men in the world, but the women's race has absolutely taken over. Paula Radcliffe, obviously, that's the reason we're here. That's why we're so excited, and that's what we're looking forward to. Can she break the record? Well, physically, I think she's strong enough. I think she's good enough. Whether she does it or not, well, we'll tell you in a couple of hours' time.
Absolutely, and as for Paula, she has had a sensational year already, but she knows that being high profile makes her a target for all the other runners. These are her thoughts on her tactics today.
I'd just like to run my race, to feel as good as I did in London, and to run it according to how I feel in the race, not to try and get caught up in anyone else's race, but just to run how I feel. And if I feel strong, then I'll attack then. And having said that, if somebody else does attack, then I'm gonna cover that, because although it's important to run well, the main thing is to win the race, and I have to sometimes just follow the moves that other people make too.
Is there a little bit of thought that I mean, I've done 2 marathons, and I know the second one was different from the first, because the first one you kind of don't know what to expect. So you have an area of caution, if you like, which I think probably you did in London, maybe in the early stages. And then as the race went on, you got more and more confident, and you were almost seemed to be getting faster and faster and faster. Is that dangerous to maybe have lost that caution, or have you lost that
No,
caution?
I don't think I have lost it, because I think the marathon is definitely still an event that you always have to have a lot of respect for. And talking to people like Paul Turgat yesterday, he was saying that every marathon that he's done has been totally different, and it's affected him in different ways. So he said he's felt totally different before, during and after. And so I'm going in with that respect and with that caution and wariness, but at the same time confident that I've done as much as I could to make sure that, give myself every chance of having a great run.
On the shores of Lake Michigan, and with a spectacular skyline behind, you couldn't wish for a more perfect setting for the 25th running of the Chicago Marathon. It all begins here at Buckingham Fountain in Grant Park. It'll only just be getting light when they line up on the start line, just over there on Columbus Drive. From there, they're going to head north, through the various city neighbourhoods, taking in some of the sights on the way, such as the very famous Sears Tower. At that point, they'll be going south, eventually ending up on the shores of Lake Michigan once more, and then the very, very welcome finish line just at the other end of the park. They might be a little bit tired to notice, but on the way, there are quite a few attractions. This is known as the Magnificent Mile, which is a pretty good name for the first mile in a marathon. It's where all the swanky shops are. But no time for shopping as they head north of the city. Sports fans anywhere in the world will recognize the home of the Chicago Cubs, Wrigley Field. They're beyond 10K at this point now. They turn back and head back into the city. Time for the shades. It's Blues Brother country. They're just about halfway now. Little Italy. The mob that were here in the 1920s all ended up behind bars. The mob that are coming through here today, though, will be looking for some refreshment as they head into the last third of the race. From Little Italy, it's a short hop here to Chinatown, but from here, it really starts to hurt. The Cannucci Tunnel. So called because in 1999, Khalid Cannucci entered here locked in a battle with Moses Tanui, less than 2 miles to go. And when they emerged into the daylight, he'd built up a significant lead, was on his way to winning in a new world record. Well, whatever happens, we're all prepared for a grandstand finish. Well, almost anyway. Not quite sure how long it's going to take them to get to the finish line. I guess we're going to find out pretty soon. So, let the race begin. The start line of the Chicago Marathon, the 25th running of this event, 37,000 competitors, but all eyes very much on the front. Rather unusually these days, the elite men and the elite women compete at the same time. That will be a different experience for Paula Radcliffe, but what a field we have gathered here today in the women's race. Paula Radcliffe, very much the favourite from a home point of view, but as I said earlier on, she's up against Catherine Ndereba of Kenya, the woman who broke the world record on this very, very fast course last year. Ndereba has been in good form once more this year, and it's an eagerly awaited clash after Paula Radcliffe came so close to that world record in her debut in London. The men's race as well, the world record holder Canucci, who broke the record, of course, in London, but it was his own time that he'd set here in Chicago in '99 that he broke, and he's up against once more Paul Turgat, the man who so far has only managed to finish second in his marathon career. And last year he started here very much as the favourite, but was beaten by the surprise winner Ben Kimonju of Kenya. The two mouth-watering races in prospect. All the talk has been about fast times here. All the talk has been, can Paula Radcliffe break that world record? But I tell you what, around her camp, I think there's more talk about making sure that she wins. Conditions, as we've already said, well, I would say pretty much ideal, to be honest. The forecast a day or two ago didn't look too good. They said it was going to be very, very cold at the start. We were expecting quite strong winds, and we're on the shores of Lake Michigan, and although they run through the streets of Chicago for most of the race, there are parts of the course where it's quite open, and had it been windy, it certainly could have put paid to any chance of any fast times. Well, they're all prepared down at the finish line. The silver foil will be very welcome, I think. Could have done with one or two then this morning when we were walking down. It was dark as most of these people made their way to the start. The sun finally came up about 45 minutes ago. Well, Brendan's finally made it back to the commentary box, and as I said, a lot of talk, Bren, about fast times, but in the marathon you just cannot tell, can you? You really just have to go out there and see how it goes on the day. And for Paula, all the preparation's been made, but until she gets running, I don't think then either she or we will know exactly what her target's going to be.
It's exactly the reason we're here. We're here to watch Paula Radcliffe, who we know physically is in fantastic shape. She's had a glorious year. It'd be surprising to me if she ever had a better year than this. This really has been her time, and when an athlete's time comes, then they can do any kinds of things. They can do all kinds of performances, they can break all kinds of records, they can win all sorts of titles, and Paula Radcliffe enjoying that moment. The start of the 2002 LaSalle Bank Chicago Marathon. The two fastest men in the world in this race, Paul Turgat, Khalid Canucci, and the two fastest women in the world, Catherine Ndereba, the world record holder, and Paula Radcliffe, who ran that fabulous time in London just a few months ago. And the atmosphere here this morning, as we made our way to the start, was absolutely electric. Everyone taking their time, coming here with their various drinks, and also trying to keep warm, which is a little bit of a problem here this morning. But there they are, on their way. This is what they've been training for. 38,000 people registered for the Chicago Marathon. And very interestingly, I think, these days, 42% of them were women. And when you think back, it was only 30 years ago when women were actually allowed to run a marathon. Before that time, they used to have to disguise themselves and not be seen because they weren't allowed to actually take part in the event. And America was the pioneer. America was the way. The Boston Marathon was the first one to allow women to run. And since then, women have taken the marathon from the record back in 1977 when this race was first held. The world record for the marathon was 2 hours and 38 minutes. And here we are, 25 years later, celebrating the 25th Chicago Marathon, and the world record is 20 minutes faster than that. Fabulous time and a fabulous occasion for women's distance running, I think.
Well, if you're wondering where Paula is, she's in amongst that lot somewhere, but running a bit quicker than these people we're seeing right now. As I said, the women starting in the main race, so it will be a mile or two at least before we're able to really pick them up. But I tell you what, when they come to the end, there won't be too many, even of the elite men, ahead of Paula Radcliffe and Catherine Ndereba. In fact, somewhere around the world record time would have certainly put them in the top 20 last year. But at the beginning, find themselves surrounded by pretty good standard men, but a different experience to London when for Paula it was pretty much about running on her own most of the way. Well, this early part of the course, to give you your bearings, they head north into the downtown area. And if you saw that little guide to the course a little bit earlier on, into the area where most of the smart shops are, and where some of these people will have spent the last few days trying to get to know the city a little bit better. But we've got a whole phalanx of pacemakers in the men's race, and some escorts, as they've been called, in the women's race. We've talked a lot about world records. This course is renowned for being very fast. It's flat. In fact, the only rises of any description, they've just gone across one of the bridges, and they'll cross the Chicago River about 4 or 5 times during the course, but literally just a little rise over these bridges, and that's about as much as you could call a hill on this course. It is very, very flat and fast.
The American running magazine, Track and Field News, call this the marathon speedway, and the reason they do that is because Steve just said it's absolutely perfectly flat. They're usually very good conditions. They time the race in October, and they make the time of day the one that most suits these distance runners, and this event is really geared towards all of these runners, the famous runners, the world record breakers, and you can see him in the black vest there, Khalid Kanuchi, the man of the marathon, formerly of Morocco, now representing the USA, and they've really taken to him. He's becoming a US citizen. He represents the USA, and one day he says, I'll repay my country and I'll wear the stars and stripes and try and win a major championship. Following the pacemakers, as he's expected to do, that will be a real advantage there. There's 4 of them setting off there, moving the pace along. And this is the day where distance running, marathon running takes over from the main sports. Chicago is one of the main sports cities in America. Wrigley Field, the famous home of the Chicago Cubs baseball team. The Soldier Field just down the road where the Chicago Bears play. And the most famous of all, made famous in recent years by Michael Jordan, the Chicago Bulls play NBA basketball here. And they're the main 3 sports in town. But for one day, they step aside and allow the marathon to take over. And it literally does take over. And it takes over at the front end there, seeing the world champion marathon runners. But really, this marathon, once again, has grown now to become the 2nd biggest marathon in the world after the London Marathon. And there you can see, Marathon Day in Chicago. The town's taken over, and for once, almost 1 million spectators line this route. Give these people every bit of support they deserve. An inspirational event this nowadays. It's grown, as I said, in 25 years, from a very small marathon where they had 4,000 and 5,000 in the very early years. They went through a troubled time. It's become truly international in the last 5 or so years. But 5 years ago, they only had 14,000 finishers. This year, they're looking for 28,000. So this event has doubled in size, tripled in quality, and it's a fabulous event. The reason we're here, we haven't seen the reason we're here yet, but the reason we're here is to see Paula Radcliffe. But in the meantime, the men's race unfolds, and we're looking at Gert Thies in the blue vest on the outside there, one of the fastest marathon runners of all time, as we look at some of the distinguished sights in the background, and some people with some great stories and some great support on the side of the road. Almost 1 million people will be out here today to watch what they hope will be an interesting race, a competitive race, and maybe even a record-breaking race.
Gert Thies, wearing number 46. Next to him, Bulgarka wearing 47. And Joseph Kariuki, 44. I think he's going to be crucial to this, Kariuki, because he's the one who has more experience, I think, than most in pacemaking. Normally does a very, very good job indeed, Kariuki. Running back down State Street at the moment, having made the first couple of turns. And they do twist and turn through the early parts of this race, through downtown Chicago. But as you can see, it really is ideal running conditions if you want to run fast. We'll hope to get some pictures of the women's race, as I said, after maybe around about 2 miles, as the field starts to spread out a little bit. But I'm pretty sure that Paula will have set off, hopefully at a sensible pace. I think the difference for her this time round is you know, there will be men around. What tends to happen in these races, when you see the elite women, there's lots of club runners like the idea of being around them and getting on TV, etc., and sometimes get in the way, but hopefully the escorts around them will stop that happening. But I suppose the danger was maybe getting carried away with the speed of the men around and perhaps starting through those first 2 miles a little bit quickly. So that's something I'm pretty sure that she's going to be aware of.
Well, actually, as you spoke there, Steve, I had a chuckle, because it would be an awful long way to come for us to not see Paula Radcliffe running, wouldn't it? It would be coming across halfway across the world to watch Paula Radcliffe. We haven't seen her yet. We are assured she's there, because as we were walking to the start line, believe it or not, we bumped into Paula with her entourage, her coach, Gerard Hartman, her physio, and also her husband Gary Locke. We saw them on the way to the start. They all looked to be pretty cheerful, but they were just watching. Paula was doing the business. Paula was running. Well, we hope she's out there. We're pretty sure she's out there. Love to see her. Great to see her.
Well, we'll see her shortly, I hope, but we can't hear from her now. Just give us an idea, or hope that she can give us an idea of how fast she thinks she can actually go.
I try not to put a limit on the time, because I definitely think I can run faster, and I think there's improvements still that I can make in training, that I can go away after this race and try and come back next year and be in better shape. So I don't want to set a limit whereby I'd be running along and think, oh, I can't run that fast, I have to slow down. I just want to run how I feel, and to be honest, I won't be looking at the clock too much on the way round, because I think that can sometimes just put little mental barriers in your head, and it's better just to run how you feel and see the clock when you've finished and know what you've done there.
So you don't buy the arguments going around at the minute within the sport that, you know, limits have been set and that anyone goes beyond them, or, you know, there's inferences about the Chinese, they must have been cheating to run so fast on the track at 5,000, 10,000 in particular, and I mean there's even been inferences towards yourself. I mean, for you, there are no limits. You still think that you, maybe one or two others, can go faster?
Oh, definitely. I think that there's a lot of women can still go faster. I mean, if you look at how long women have really been sort of moving forward in marathon running, that record stood still for a long time after Ingrid Christensen set it. I just think it can definitely go faster than it is now, but I think that there's several people, like 5 or 6 people, that can take that record faster. And it's the same for the 5,000 metres. 10,000 metres, yeah. But I don't think the Chinese record is totally gone. I think that if we sort of keep plugging away and taking it little bits by little bits, it could be possible. I don't want to say it's not possible. And I think the big shame is that we don't have the drug testing in place, so that when somebody puts in a good performance, they can't say, well, look, I did every test and I can prove that what I've done is by hard work. So it just casts up all the suspicion and innuendos.
Does that still rankle with you, though? Because, I mean, not only on you personally, but for the sport, it's difficult if people watching only assume that records are being broken because someone's cheating, or if that innuendo is always around.
Well, it's bad for the sport, and it's bad for the people coming into the sport, because I don't believe they're going to get the best out of themselves if they believe that it's not possible to do that. You have to go in and believe that it's possible to run fast, and people have done it in the past.
Well, Paula has been, I have to say, the centre of an awful lot of attention here in the 3-4 days leading up to the race. But we get to see her this morning. I assure you we will be seeing pictures of her pretty quickly. Now, this is just around about the 2-mile mark, and the news in the men's race as they went through the first mile in 4:40, the second mile a little bit slow. Perhaps that corner there was exactly on the 2-mile mark. So pretty good pace being set so far, but no sign of Canucci. Just really a group of pacemakers at this early point. But they're doing their job, certainly. I think the men's races, every opportunity, have been equally as intriguing as the women's. And Chicago has a habit of throwing up surprises, either very quick times and world records or shock wins as well. Certainly that's what happened last year. The pacemaker, Ben Kimonju, set off and set a good pace for the first half of the race and decided to keep going as far as he could. Got to around 20 miles and decided to complete the race. Paul Tergat passed him with a couple of miles to go, but then he hung on and came home to win by 4 seconds, which was a big shock to Tergat, of course. And Tergat, as you may well remember, second to Canucci in London in that very, very quick time, just 10 seconds behind Canucci, who broke the world record that day. Well, they're still streaming across the start line. It takes quite a while to get all of these people up and running. In fact, it's taken, well, we've been going just over 10 minutes. They stretched a half a mile back down Columbus Drive from the start line. But most of them seem to be on their way now. Well, we've heard from Paula Radcliffe just a few minutes ago. And her big rival in this race is the world record holder, Catherine Endereba. So let's hear from her now.
I feel great, and I thank God that I'm able to get back here. And I know it's not by might, neither by power, but by the power of the Holy Spirit and the grace and mercies of God. Because I know there are a lot of things that have been going on, but God has protected me and has been able to get me here, being strong.
How do you think the race will go?
Well, I can't say much about the race, how it will go, but I'm trusting God that everything gonna be fine.
There's been a lot of talk about world records. Paula Radcliffe, who just missed the world record in London, you broke the world record here this year. Can you go that fast?
Well, I'm trusting God. I know that I've done what I'm supposed to do, and I'm hoping to give all I can to this race, and what I can't, I just leave it to God.
If Paula Radcliffe goes off a world record pace, will you go with her?
Well, myself, I'm not like kind of a person who normally just follows each and every one pace. I normally like to follow my own pace and go according to how my body responds. So I'll just go according to how my body will be responding.
And if you look back to this time last year, is your preparation as good in 2002?
Sure. It's just the same as last year.
First feed station, one or two people taking drinks on board. Lots of support on the course. I reckon 500,000 people or so will come out to cheer them through the streets of Chicago, and this race really has got bigger and bigger. Brendan was saying earlier on, now considers itself certainly to be, I would say, second behind London. I think they agree with that. And they've done a marvellous job with this race. Actually, about 15 years ago, it reached a point where they lost sponsors and lost interest, and in 1987 the race was just run as a half marathon. But after that, very much got their act together, and in recent years, particularly in terms of times, has been the one that a lot of the world's best athletes have wanted to come here for.
Well, the figures that we're looking at, Steve, which published in the very good guide they've given to the media, is that the London Marathon is the biggest marathon in the world, 30,000 finishers in 2001, and the LaSalle Bank Chicago Marathon, the second biggest, with 28,000 finishers. After that, there was Berlin with 25,000, and then New York, which used to be the big one, now 23,000 finishers, and then the Paris Marathon with 22,000. So they are the big marathons in the world. This one is one of the biggest, clearly. It's also one of the best. It's also a superbly organized one, and you can just feel the whole city turns itself to the marathon on this particular weekend. Huge amount of incoming visitors for the event, 1 million spectators, 28,000 finishers they're expecting, and 28,000 happy customers. And there's the first sight of Paula Radcliffe. Not surprisingly, gloves and a hat. But Paula Radcliffe, we've got an unofficial time through 2 miles, and the unofficial time through 2 miles is around about 10 minutes and 30 seconds. We'll come closer to giving an official time on that when we get it ratified, but that suggests that Paula Radcliffe has set off at world record pace, 2 hours and 18 minutes world pace that she's running at. And just behind her, I can see the Japanese athlete Shibui, who we were expecting to challenge in this race, and there she is with the sunglasses on just behind Paula, who's surrounded by these class distance runners. These men who are going to run under 2 hours 20 minutes, and Paula's set herself right in the middle. She's surrounded by these people. She's actually right in the middle of that group, and she is well on her way, looking comfortable. It is cold out there today, but at the moment the wind hasn't got up yet, but they are expecting that to happen. But she won't be troubled too much by the wind, by the cold. She would be if it started blowing a gale, but here she is, well on her way. Great to see her in action again. She's raced very sparingly this year. The marathon at the beginning of the year in London was one of the great marathon runs of all time, and then at 10,000 metres in the European Championships, for me, one of the great runs of all time. And here she is now in the race she's prepared for since that European Championship 10,000 metres, the one she wanted to be in, the race she wanted to take part in. And Paula Radcliffe, the second fastest marathon runner of all time, and just behind her, behind the Japanese athlete Shibui as well, the fastest marathon runner of all time for women, Catherine Ndereba. So there's Paula Radcliffe. Just at the very back of the shot, we can see Shibui, the Japanese athlete, but Paula does look comfortable there.
Back to the men's race then. The split times for you, and a pretty good pace being set. If they maintain that sort of pace, then they're certainly heading for something around about world record. So very early stages though, and it's always difficult to use these early mile splits to give you an indication of what's going to be the finishing time, because the pacemakers very much have been given a task to do. It's more about what happens later on when pacemakers do drop out, if indeed they do, and who, if anybody, picks up the pace and keeps it going. Canucci and Turgat, you have the feeling, will be very closely matched in this race this year. Turgat was being teased a little bit about the fact that he's done nothing but finish second, and he was having a bit of fun with it, but you just get the feeling deep down it's just beginning to knock him a little bit. And particularly this race last year when he really should have won it, and to be beaten by the pacemaker was something which was a surprise not only to him but to everybody else as well.
I spoke to him yesterday, Steve, and he was very animated about that. He was very unhappy that the pacemaker, that he knew he was a pacemaker. He'd never met him before. It was another Kenyan athlete, but he didn't realize that the Kenyan athlete, the pacemaker, he thought he was going to drop out, and Paul was rather annoyed when the pacemaker kept going, and he said it really spoiled his race. He didn't know who it was. He didn't know anything about him. He'd never seen him before or met him before, and suddenly he was in a race against the pacemaker, which wasn't his liking. So he says he thinks the pacemaker should have been told, and the pacemakers today, they should announce whether they're going to finish or not, and that means that Paul Turgat will do something about it. And you can see Paul Turgat in 5th place. He's actually wearing a long sleeve t-shirt and a hat and gloves, and he was very concerned yesterday when we spoke about the cold temperature. He really is not happy about it. He says, you know, you spend so much energy keeping warm, and really that energy should be being applied to the marathon. So keeping warm is one thing, is another thing, and he said if it's as cold as it's predicted to be, I think we'll struggle to run a really fast time. But really, the fact of the matter, there we look at Paul Turgat in that long sleeve t-shirt and the white gloves and the black hat on the inside there. He's wearing his number 3, so he's clearly going to finish with that long sleeve t-shirt on. But as I said, he's so concerned about the temperatures, less so about the competition.
For the last mile, 4 minutes 44 seconds, so that good pace, that good early pace being maintained. Meanwhile, back in the women's race, surrounded by the men then, just looking for one or two of the escorts. I can't really see the men who are designated as her pacemakers, if you like, but she's certainly surrounded by a good group there. No sign of Ndereba at the moment, but Ndereba tends to have a habit of sitting off when there are other big-name competitors there. She can front run, certainly when she broke the world record here. She won by over 6 minutes in Arabia on that day, but I think she'll be content to stay behind Paula. But 5:22 there for the last mile. And that's very, very quick running at this early stage. And if these splits are correct, and you must bear with us that we're getting as much information as we can from on the course, and we're assuming they're correct, then that is fast running, very, very fast running at this early stage. Shibui, Brendan was saying, that Japanese with so many good athletes around. Just incidentally, some information over the weekend in the Asian Games. Some very quick times there, over 5,000 and 10,000 meters from Chinese athletes. But of course, it's still headed, all the world rankings headed by Paula Radcliffe on the track and in the marathon as well. Well, she's gone through 4 miles in 21 minutes and 4 seconds. And were she to maintain that, that is almost exactly on world record pace. But as I said, just take that all with a little pinch of salt at this stage. And this is very, very different to what we saw from Paula in London, of course. She ran the first half of the race in London a little bit more circumspect and ran the second half very, very quickly indeed. If you remember, she just seemed to speed up and speed up all the time. But this looks like different tactics here today. She must have some target in her head. I think over the last couple of days it's been difficult because certainly Thursday, Friday, it was very warm here in Chicago. It was around 70 degrees, 75 degrees indeed on Friday. And then all of the talk was of this cold front coming in and how things were going to change. Well, we're told that the last mile was 5 minutes and 12 seconds. Well, that is very, very quick indeed. What do you think about that, Brendan? I mean, we obviously look to these times being accurate. We'll assume that they are. And it is very, very different to the way which we saw her run, as I said before, in London. And runners around her, that's obviously going to be a factor. Maybe she can't help but go along at this sort of pace. Or was this pre-planned?
Well, once she settles in that group, you know, once she settles there in the middle and she's got safe distance between herself and those runners around her, so there's no one getting in her way, then I think Paula is wise just to sit there and follow this pace. They're doing the work, she's following, she's running exceptionally quickly, she's running the sort of pace that would bring her home in a world best time, and we know that that's what she's got in mind. And the question is, the marathon will tell you the story, and it'll tell it between 20 and 26 miles. But so far, she's putting herself in a position, she's ignoring the opposition once more. She's decided that she wants to run really quickly. She's decided that she can do it as best she can on her own. She's surrounded by men, but they're not competitive with her. And there, Shibui of Japan, who set a Japanese record recently of 30 minutes and 48 seconds for 10,000 meters. Remember, Paula Radcliffe ran 30 minutes and 1 second for 10,000 meters. So Shibui is very confident. Shibui is prepared for this race carefully, and Shibui is following Paula Radcliffe just a safe distance behind her, just giving herself some space, but she's certainly allowing the pace to be dictated by Paula Radcliffe in the women's section of this event, and also Paula Radcliffe is obliging her. So Shibui sitting back there, Paula Radcliffe there, and there's Shibui moving alongside Paula Radcliffe for the first time. So Paula might get a little bit of a shock when she sees her. Meanwhile, the men, big group in the men's race, big group of Kenyans particularly. Paul Turgat in there on the far outside, and I'm just looking in that group, and I'm just looking for the world record holder, Khalid Kanuchi. He wears a black vest, and I'm just looking to see if we can see Khalid Kanuchi. And for the moment, the black vest of the world record holder for the marathon seems to be just evident there now, right at the back of that group, behind Paul Turgat, about 15 meters behind him. The last mile completed 4 minutes and 31 seconds. So the men are operating too. They're operating faster than world record pace too. Khalid Kanuchi, who lives in America and spends time here, we managed to catch up with him a week, and his thoughts on the marathon, very, very interesting indeed.
It's a magical place to be. Chicago is just such a beautiful place. I had great memories here and just delighted to be back, and I'm hoping that I can look for more.
Now you come here off what has been a fantastic year and a great performance obviously in London, and you've talked in the past about not having the recognition that you think you deserve. Do you think now that people look to you as the world's best marathon runner?
I think now is better, but going into the London Marathon last April, I think I feel like I was not getting the attention that I was supposed to get. It didn't bother me. In the contrary, just I went out there and used my anger and prove people that I should get better and more recognition.
So now you're in a different position. Instead of everybody looking at Gebre Selassie and Turgat as they were in London, all eyes are on you here.
I've been in situations, so I'm not worried about that. But I will say that I think I feel less pressure than before, just because I already saved the year. I mean, I have great spring season winning the London Marathon, and I'm just going to come here and enjoy myself, and I'm hungry to get another win.
What are the tactics in terms of the race? Because having run world best in London, is it coming here and just win, make sure you win here, or is a fast time on the card?
It's very important to come with the mentality of securing a victory. I mean, if you look for chasing a world record, it's not something that I've been doing. Even when I broke the world records twice, I didn't have that pressure from the media that I'm going after a world record. I didn't have that mentality to go and chase it. I did it in 1998 when I was feeling that I'm in good shape and I failed to win. So it's very important. You have to come with expectations, but not so high. You just have to go out there and try to get a win. And if I can get a win, I'll be very pleased with that.
And finally, this is a marathon on home soil. You are now an American citizen. How does that feel?
It feels great. It was very special when I won here in 2000, and the crowd just celebrated fantastically. And I had great time with friends and people in the city. And we're looking forward, hopefully, to get another victory. It's going to be something for the sport here in the U.S.
Well, Khalid Khannouchi telling everyone that he wants the respect that the marathon will give him. When we came to London Marathon, he wasn't the favourite, even though he was the world record holder, because the two men that we'd been waiting for to do something damage at the marathon, Paul Turgat and then Gebre Selassie, were expected to outmaneuver him. But on that day, I remember them coming together along the mile. The world record holder for the half marathon, Turgat, the world record holder for the marathon, Khannouchi, and the world record holder for the 10,000 metres, Gebre Selassie. And when we cut to them after Paul had just won the race, that was a fantastic sight for me. And surprisingly, out of that lot, coming with about 3 miles to go, eventually it was Khalid Khannouchi that won the race that day, beating the two great men of the track. So he did regain some confidence, and he also regained a tremendous status, beating those two men in that London Marathon. And there we are today. You can see Paul Turgat here. We can see Khannouchi, and the women's race is now getting quite exciting. There's Paula Radcliffe in the middle of that group, and just behind Paula we've seen Catherine Dereba, and the split times are really fascinating now. The last mile, an incredible 5 minutes and 10 seconds, but Paula Radcliffe has got company. She's got company from Chiba of Japan. She's got company of Shibui of Japan. She's also got company for the first time for the world record holder, Catherine Dereba.
Well, another word on the pace that she's running there. 26 minutes and 14 seconds through 5 miles would give her a winning time of, well, a minute inside the world record, around 2:17 and a half. Well, they're still making their way through Lincoln Park. They're not far away from the shores of Lake Michigan, just through the trees there. And they really do have some good conditions here today. Everybody was very, very concerned that this year's Chicago Marathon would be blighted by particularly strong winds, but, well, the weather forecasters have got it wrong again, I'm pleased to say. And although we've been talking about world records and conditions, I know that in '99, when Khannouchi broke the world record in the men's world record at that time, it was pretty much a day like this. It was around about 40 degrees, sun was shining, cold, but no wind. So if that's an omen, it's a good one. Now there's Endereba. Just a few yards behind Paula Radcliffe. She's in amongst this group. Shibui just a little bit further ahead. You can probably just see her just drifting over to the far side of the road wearing the red vest. And they're reaching almost the most northern part of the course. The most northern part of Chicago that they venture into.
And there the men, the pacemakers, lined across the road, and Paul Turgat following them. He's right behind in the pole position, and then about 15-20 meters behind Paul Turgat in the black vest. The last mile there, we're looking close, a little bit slower than the previous miles. Unofficially, it looks to be just about 5 minutes, but we'll get that officially to you. The men are running quickly. They're running on the last mile there, officially confirmed now, 5 minutes and 1 second. So that was a little bit slower than the others, but they're still operating at sub 2 hours 6 pace, so they're still operating at world record pace in the men's marathon. We've also had the information from the women's race that they're operating, and the official, if they kept going at the same pace in the women's race right now, they'd be heading for 2 hours 17 minutes and 34 seconds. That's more than a minute faster than the record held by Catherine de Reba. So we've got two fascinating races here. We've got pacemakers towing the men along, and Turgat looks to be in the long sleeve white vest with a hat and the white gloves. Seems to be taking very close order, but Khaled Kanucci less so. But there's Paula Radcliffe, who's operating faster now in this marathon than any woman has ever run before. Can she keep it going? Very early stages here, but her fitness we knew about, her intent we knew about. Can she stay the distance? I think she'll be quite enjoying the fact that she's got people ahead of her, sheltering her a little. Not that it's that bad and she needs it that much, but she's got company of the two Japanese, and also right at the back of the shot, there's Shibui, number 104, the Japanese runner, and just behind Shibui, there's Shibui there, number 104, and just behind her, her teammate Shiba, and there is Endereba, the world record holder for the marathon. So they're all there, they're all operating at this speed, they're all running faster than a woman has ever run before. And it is incredible what's happening here so far. And at the moment, fingers crossed, Steve, we're blessed by the weather.
Fingers crossed indeed. The keen guy in that group, you just see him looking around now, right on the right-hand side of the screen in the yellow strip with the hat on there, wearing P43, just lost him in the picture there, but he's the key man. He's the man who's actually supposed to be officially setting the pace for Paula Radcliffe, although there are other men around there. And he's the man who is supposed to certainly take it to around about 20 miles, Weldon Johnson. And he's sticking close. I think he has a personal best of about 2:19, so he might well be feeling this sort of pace at the moment, but he's the key man for her to watch. I've got a feeling she's just got all eyes on the road ahead at this particular juncture, and hopefully she's getting good information back as to exactly how quickly she's going. I'm pretty sure she is. Prepares so meticulously, and although this is a fast pace, perhaps not unexpected, all of the talk and all of the hype, Paula, I wouldn't say she necessarily fuels it, but she doesn't necessarily go around denying the fact that she wants to run fast either, does she?
Interestingly, Steve, we just had some news from Ireland where they're sitting around the television in a pub in Loughrea in County Galway. Sonia O'Sullivan's amongst them, having just won the Great Island Run in 25.5 minutes after her victory last week in the Great North Run. In a couple of weeks' time, she's looking forward to her attempt to run a marathon on American soil. So as we watch Paula Radcliffe there, the news is that Sonia O'Sullivan is continuing in fine form. A great victory there. She won the race by about 90 seconds in 25 minutes and 30 seconds in the Great Island Run. And there's her rival, the athlete who beat her in the European Championships, Paula Radcliffe. So far, the second fastest female marathon runner of all time, and at the moment operating faster in this marathon than any woman has ever run before. But she's not on her own. She's got 2 Japanese, and she's got Endereva on the inside there in the white vest and the black shorts. So Paula looking comfortable and looking strong and looking relaxed. The mileage behind her, the training that she's done in Font-Romeu, at altitude there in the Pyrenees. She really has worked hard for this. She's really worked hard for her present status as the top female distance runner in the world at the moment. A fabulous year behind her, and this is just one more step on the road to make this a glorious 2002 for Paula Radcliffe.
I was chatting to Paula the other day, and she was saying how she's not as well known here in America, but and that was nice. She was able to go out with Gary and have a quiet meal without being tested. But I have a funny feeling that at the end of today, she may well be a little better known by the American public. Back in the men's race. They're now turning back south, or they have turned back south. This is the area up near Wrigley Field, home of the Chicago Cubs. The last 5 miles are interesting there. The pace has very much been up and down. A quick mile there in the middle of that, lot 4:31, and then slowing down again. It really hadn't looked as though the pace had changed that much. Brendan was mentioning the fact that maybe Canucci wasn't paying as close attention as you might expect. Paul Turgat, the one who's stuck very much to the pacemakers. He's still there, look, wearing the gloves. And I've got to say, this is a first for Brendan and I. It's the first time we've ever commentated in gloves. It is very, very chilly still, but not when you're running. I know that we talk about the weather, and certainly if you're sitting watching, it can be chilly, but for the athletes running, they'll be pretty much warmed up by now, and the temperature will start to increase as the sun gets a little bit higher in the sky here in the morning in Chicago. And for a lot of the course, as we said earlier on, they're very well protected by the high-rise buildings. I'm told that the temperature at the minute is around about 37 degrees. Well, feels a little bit warmer than that, I have to say. But the pace that they're running would indicate that the athletes certainly aren't having any problems at all with the conditions. So Paul Turgat, wearing number 3. A little bit further back in that group, Canucci is wearing number 2. You might wonder why he's not wearing number 1. Well, they always give last year's winner number 1. And that is Ben Kimondu. Well, I've yet to spot in that group, to be perfectly honest. I'm pretty sure he'll be there. The man who surprised everybody by staying out in the front all the way. Well, there we go, on cue, just as I mentioned him. There he is, wearing number 1. It's the first time we've seen him very much near the front. Complete unknown last year, took everybody by surprise. He said that during the race as he was running on, he was actually scheduled to be running in New York 2-3 weeks later, and he just decided, well, I might as well keep running the 26 miles and not bother with New York, and ended up winning the race.
Well, that's right. And if you look at number 3, Paul Turgat, Paul is one of the nicest men you'll ever know in athletics. He's been around for such a long time. He's been involved in cross-country and on the track and now on the roads. And he has always got a kind word for everybody. But yesterday, he was talking about Kimondu, and he really doesn't like him. He doesn't like him because when he got to about 15 to 16 miles, Kimondu didn't tell him that he was going to finish. So Paul was kind of not worrying about him and running next to him, and all of a sudden, after 20 miles, he was still there. And he just thought he was helping him as a pacemaker, and actually he went away and stole the race. And Paul was very annoyed about that, and that's not really his style.
It raised an interesting point though, Brendan, because I think very much Turgat was leading until the latter stages, and then Kimonju came back and won by 4 seconds in the end. And Turgat lost London really in the latter stages as well, and I know one or two journalists were saying to him, is that something that you've worked on? And he said he's very much in his training, he's looked at the last couple of miles of his training runs and hoping that in the race he can be strong at that stage. He doesn't want to lose the race again in the last mile or so.
Well, this race has had a great history over the years. There have been some great runners have run here, and British athletes have featured very strongly in this event. In fact, over the recent years, when it became an international race, the British athletes have been very, very successful, more successful, and even the Kenyans. Steve Jones won it, and recently Paul Evans won it, Eamon Martin won it, Steve Jones won it a couple of times, Paul Davis-Hale won it back in 1989, and then recent times Marion Sutton won the women's race twice. So Britain has won this race on those number of occasions, 7 occasions. That's more than anybody else. And today we're well represented in the women's race, not so well represented in the men's race, but we're looking here at a classic men's race. Paul Turgat chases the leader, the pacemaker, in the men's race, and back in the women's race, around that one of those tight corners, and there Paula Radcliffe surrounded by those very, very good male distance runners operating at the pace 2 hours 17 to 18 pace, and you've got to be a good runner to run 2 hours 17 or 18. You really have. Paula Radcliffe pushing the barriers back in women's distance running. She approaches this race without being too concerned about the pace. But funnily enough, the Chicago Tribune, a local newspaper, which is a renowned sports paper in America, I often read it in America, and I often find them to be very insightful when they talk about sport. But here, I couldn't believe the article I read yesterday, talking about Paula Radcliffe, who's done nothing to offend them, I don't think. It says, so completely and innocently does Paula Radcliffe fit the caricature of an eccentric Briton that one is left wondering whether she's a star athlete, favoured to win the marathon, or a composite of oddball characters from Monty Python's Flying Circus. Well, not a very nice welcome for Paula. I hope she proves them wrong, even though the hat does add to that thing about the Monty Python Flying Circus.
Well, we won't talk about our dress this morning. As I said, we are wearing gloves. Well, actually, Brendan, you've gone for the Alvin Stardust style. You've got one glove on and one glove off.
Is that Alvin Stardust style?
Yeah. You don't remember him?
No, I don't actually.
You do.
All right, I do.
Well, the women's pace has been a little bit up and down as well. We've just brought you the last mile there, 5:17. The previous one was very, very quick. The one before that, the 6th mile, was rather slow, as it was indeed in the men's race. So I'm just querying a little bit as to that mile marker. I know that we assume that they get this very, very right. It just seems odd that both the men and the women had a very slow mile in that 6th mile, followed by a pretty quick mile, the one after that. But we'll assume certainly that the cumulative time is absolutely correct. And 42:06 is bang on 2 hours and 18-minute pace. So she just slowed slightly from the pace she was running at about 5 miles. With 42 minutes and 6 seconds is still very, very fast, and will still bring her inside the existing world record.
Well, just working that one through, that pace at 8 miles works through to 2 hours, 17 minutes and 59 seconds. So Paula Radcliffe, as well as Chiba of Japan and Shibui of Japan and Catherine Ndereba of Kenya, all of them are running faster than any woman has ever run before in a marathon. Phenomenal event this, phenomenal piece of distance running so far, but let's remember, 18 miles to go.
80 miles to go to find out whether Paula Radcliffe can win the Chicago Marathon. And let's just have a look at the past winners in recent years. Catherine Ndereba, of course, who won last year, breaking the world record, but she won the previous year as well in 2000. Joyce Chepchumba won the 2 previous years, 99 and 98. And Marion Sutton, who's here in Chicago, had a great win in 96, and then repeated that in 97. So, some good names there, and Paula Radcliffe hoping to stop Ndereba making it 3 in a row, which nobody's managed to do. I think there's also a bit of interest, Brendan, in America. I haven't seen her yet, but I thought that Dina Drossen would run particularly well here. And Joan Benoit, she is now, is still the American record holder. And a lot of thought that Dina Drossen could certainly get close to that American record. Of course, she chased Paula home in the World Cross Country Championships. She's been performing very well on the roads. She's the new world record holder for 5 kilometers, a world best time that she set in Carlsbad. So she's had a fantastic year as well. And she's kind of their Paula Radcliffe, because they feel as though she's certainly helped in terms of women's athletics here in America to take on the Africans and the Japanese and the Chinese. So I haven't seen her yet, Brendan, but I thought she would have been close.
Yeah, but her best time, Steve, 2 hours and 26 minutes, and these athletes are operating nearly 10 minutes faster than that. So I don't think she'd be very wise to operate at this pace in this early stage. I think she'd be much more sensible to come through gradually, because let's face it, they're running so aggressively here. Paula Radcliffe and Catherine Ndereba running a minute faster pace-wise than they've ever run before, and that's manageable, but you can't operate at 10 minutes faster than you've ever run before. So I think Dina Drossen, who chased Paula Radcliffe home in the World Cross Country Championships, that brilliant event that we had in Leopardstown in Ireland earlier in the year, where Paula was under pressure from Dina Drossen for a long time, and that was the race that started this year, which looks as though it's going to end with a fabulous performance here. Win or lose, it looks as though Paula Radcliffe's going to run another great race. But it started with a victory in the World Cross Country back in March in Leopardstown, just outside of Dublin. There's Catherine Ndereba, number 101 in the white vest, and behind her we can see Shibui, number 104. So there's now only 3 women in that group, but they are in the group, they are together, they are sheltering behind those men, and you can see them when they come to that feed station. They look at their own feed bottle, they get the one that's labelled for them. The elite athletes are very well looked after here by Kerry Finkowski, the race director, who's done a fabulous job in the 10 years once he's been in charge. But this women's race is fascinating, and the men, back in the men's race, well, they're operating at under 2 hours 5 pace, 38.06 for 8 miles. We'll be looking for a 10-mile split soon, which should be quite revealing, but the men are running faster than any man has ever run before.
Well, there's going to be some damage done here, because there's no way that all of these men, take the pacemakers out, there are still 5 or 6 main contenders in that group. I can't believe that they're all going to survive this sort of early pace. 47.36, as Brent said, through 10 miles. They're going to be well inside world record schedule. If the women are running faster, the men are going even quicker. Tish still doing a good job.
Sorry, Steve. Some of these athletes make a living actually setting the pace, don't they, in these races? Maybe there's a future for us.
Yeah, we could pace some of the people at the very back. We can volunteer ourselves. Anybody want to run about 3.5 hours? Actually, now you've embarked on a new running career again, then, hey? The marathon coming up?
Well, I've got to get the Great North Run out of the way next year, and I'm already in training for that, as you know. I was out running yesterday, and I've got nearly a year to get round to that one, and then it might be a marathon.
I can't wait. That would give me, well, I was going to say give me 2.5 hours to take the mickey out. It'd give me about 4.5 hours, wouldn't it?
You don't have to be rude.
Well, the men are now almost back into the downtown area in Chicago. They're still running down Wells Street, and they've got a couple of little tight turns. There's the first of them. Into Franklin Street. And then once they've passed through the centre of town again, they'll start to head out west and leave the downtown area. The Americans, you know, Brendan, has got such good heritage. Frank Shorter's kicking around here, one of the great marathon runners of all time. But I'm not sure they've quite taken Canucci to their heart yet. You know, he is American now. He's domiciled here, and he has worked hard, I think, to be American, as it were. But of course, he's from Morocco originally, and it was a lot to do with his frustration, I think, with the Moroccan Federation and not maybe getting the recognition he deserved that he eventually came to America. His wife and he live in Pennsylvania, and she manages him and looks after him. And I think he's yet, though, really to capture the imagination of the American public.
Well, he certainly has, Steve, but he's only represented America really genuinely once. That was in the World Championships in the marathon in Edmonton last year, and he dropped out of that. So he's only ever run marathons in the big city marathons. He's only ever run well in the big city marathons. But he did say at a press conference yesterday that one day he swears to wear the Stars and Stripes of America, represent his country, and run a great marathon in one of the championships. Well, next year's the World Championships in Paris, and the year after that, the Olympic Games in Athens. And I was talking to Paul Turgat yesterday, and Paul says he won't run the World Championship marathon. He'll run a couple of big city marathons next year, but he will hope to end his career by running the Athens Olympic Marathon in 2 years' time. And the man who's been second twice in the Olympics at 10,000 meters, second in the World Championship 3 times at 10,000 meters, 3 times second in his marathon races, looking to improve on that today, but really looking forward to end a great athletic career on the roads, on the country, and on the track. He was 5 times champion, Paul Turgat, at the World Cross Country Championships. And he's desperately keen to add a gold medal on the track, or on a major championship. And it would be the Olympic Games. Well, an awful lot of running to be done between now and then, and particularly this one where they're running faster than they've ever run before. A big group, a lot of pacemakers. They're doing a good job, and when the pacemakers settle down in the later stages, we'll look closely and we'll see who's left. Paul Turgat's there, taking close order, and Canucci in the black vest, the world record holder for the marathon. The 2 fastest men of all time, running faster than either of them ever run before.
Crowds starting to build as they come right back into the center of Chicago. Pacemakers still doing a very good job maintaining this very, very fast pace. The last 5 miles there for you. 4:41, 4:45, 4:40, 4:50, 4:49. So really settled down now. Listen to the noise as they come through, they come down Franklin Street, and I'm just looking behind to see where the main guys are. Turgat is back there, but there's Ben Kimondu wearing number 1, right in amongst the 2 pacemakers there. Gertie still taking them through in the blue on the right-hand side, but it's Kimondu who's the first of the real elite runners, if you like. Turgat with the black hat and the white long sleeve shirt a little bit further back, and Canucci, is wearing the all dark strip, is about another 10 yards adrift, but certainly keeping an eye on everything that's going on ahead of him. And I think he may well be perhaps a little bit concerned at the fast pace, but there's no way he'd want to let the likes of Turgat drift too far away from him at this early stage.
Well, that 52:25 through 11 miles there, that is world record pace for the men's marathon. And the women through 10 mile in 52:37, again, that's world record pace for the women's marathon. So 10 miles completed in the women's race, 11 miles completed in the men's race, and both of these races operating, as the race director told us yesterday, operating at world record pace. And we're looking at an athlete who's only ever run one marathon before, and running faster almost by a minute than she ran in that one. Commonwealth Games gold medal behind her, the European Championship 10,000 meter medal already in her cabinet trophy. Everything she's done this year has been absolutely perfect in distance running terms. Paula Radcliffe. Even the hat looks pretty good on her today, I think.
never listen to you as far as fashion's concerned, honestly. I think she's may well have 2 pairs of gloves on, so I'm told. Making sure the hands keep warm. And as you said, she's had meticulous preparation. She's had Gerard Hartman out here with her, looking after her, making sure that nothing could go wrong in the last few days. And of course, different preparation when you come abroad and you have to cope with a bit of jet lag and staying in hotels and flying into an event just 3-4 days beforehand. Very different to perhaps what she does in London, where she's on much more familiar territory there. Talking about London, next year's Flora London Marathon in April, of course. If you're interested, then we'll be giving you some details in a few minutes as to how you can get involved in that and be part of the marathon experience, you and Brendan. It's been a good few years since he's run one, and actually Mark Butler, our statistician, was telling me before we came on air, Brendan, that there are a few British runners whose times could come under threat if Paula ran very, very fast. And I have to say, what's your best?
Well, I run a lot faster than she's going to run today. I ran 2 hours 15, Steve, which is about 20 minutes faster than you ever ran.
Well, maybe that won't quite come under threat, but she's certainly running at a very, very quick pace, which would be great to see her maintain a world record pace. But she's, I know, very concerned that winning the race is her #1 priority, and she's still got good company in that group. I'm just looking. Shibui's certainly still there. And the last we saw that Ndareva was there, but couldn't quite pick her out in that group with all of the other male athletes kicking around there.
Well, Steve, we just had a projection of the finishing time here if they would operate at this pace. The pace that Paula Radcliffe's running now would bring her home if she kept going in 2 hours, 17 minutes and 40 seconds. And if you look at the history books, you'll see that Jim Peters set a record, the great Jim Peters, who held the world record for the marathon 4 times. And Jim Peters ran 2 hours, 17 minutes and 39 seconds back in 1954. So just less than 50 years ago, men ran faster than the pace that Paula Radcliffe's running at. I wonder if Paula Radcliffe can ever be as great a marathon runner as Jim Peters ever was, in terms of titles and in terms of performances and in terms of holding the world best time or the world record for the marathon.
Fast pace, and I was talking about the company, and Ndareva certainly very much there, just about 10 metres adrift. And just to give you another indication of how fast they're going, Ndareva last year, when she broke the world record, went through 15 kilometres in 50 minutes and 39 seconds. This year they've gone through in 49 minutes exactly. That's over a minute and a half quicker through 15 kilometres. And certainly Ndareva, as Paula did in London last year, they started slowly. Both of them ran very much quicker in the second half of the race than they did in the first, but this is different. This time they've gone out from the start with intentions to run quick. Ndareva has just kept her eyes on Paula. She's right in the middle of the group there. Shibui in the red, just on the left of your picture at the back. And she's running very, very quick time as well, because Shibui, Brendan was talking about sort of setting off at a pace which isn't too far inside your best. Well, she's certainly heading for something at the moment. Oh, about 6 or 7 minutes inside her personal best. The last mile, 5 minutes and 27 seconds. That's, as I look down the list, the second slowest of the miles. So pace just beginning to drop a little bit. 5:24 and 5:27 as she starts to head out west, and halfway will start to loom, and that's when the race really begins, I guess. I'm just wondering, Brendan, whether, I mean, she's not looking round at all. She hasn't had one glance behind her. Do you think if she knows she's running this fast, she would assume that she's on her own, or would she assume and then be perhaps concerned that Ndareva and Shibui have set off at this very, very quick pace?
I don't think she'll be concerned yet. I think she'll be quite happy that she's running at the pace that she wants to run at. She clearly has got it in her mind that she can run faster than she ran in a debut marathon. But like like us, you know, she doesn't know that. We don't know that. What we know is that there are pointers towards the fact that she might be going to run faster, but at the end of the day, you get to 20 miles in the marathon, 6 miles to go, then you can settle down and decide who's in competition with you, who's going to give you a race to the finish, how competitive you still can remain, and whether you can win the race or not. Now, Paula Radcliffe is just at the moment putting herself in the position, putting herself into the halfway time. It looks like the halfway split, which is coming up soon for the women and for the men. I would be very surprised if it wasn't the fastest halfway split ever in a men's and a women's race. The men's race still operating close to 2 hours 5 minutes. There's the men. The operating, the time that they're looking at now on a consistent basis and on a consistent time would be just 2 hours 5 minutes and 10 seconds. And for the first time, El Mouaziz, the Moroccan, moves into second place. The man that won the London Marathon twice and finished 4th this year behind Turgat, Canucci and Gebri Selassie. And this man is really one of the strong men of the marathon. So he moves into second place, and his former countryman, Khalid Canucci, just realizes that, and he moves a little bit closer, because we've known El Mouaziz to really try and do damage in the marathon before the halfway point. So he's number 5 in the white vest, moving into second place behind Gert Thies in the blue vest, the pacemaker. Last year's winner, number 1 in the white vest and the black shorts. That's Kim On-Ju. And right behind him, the runner-up in the London Marathon, Paul Turgat in 4th place. As we look at one of the pacemakers there, number 47, whose job is to just keep them going around about this pace, and he's doing the job that he's been asked to do. That's Ronald Magaka of Kenya. The Kenyans are good pacemakers, but they're also great runners too. These days, you've got to be a great runner to be a pacemaker to run like this.
Talking about the pacemakers, Brent, I think the concerning point for the athletes might be that Kariuki, who's the man who was meant to pick it up in the second half of the race, is not even in this group at the moment. So it's very much down to Gert Thies and Mogaka to try and keep this pace going. As we see more of the big names start to drift to the front, there'll come a point where these two won't be able to maintain the pace. I mean, Gert Thies himself is a world-class marathon runner, but he's not in the sort of shape to see himself run fast times over the full distance. So let's hope that he can keep things going. But as you said, with El Mouaziz there, Kim On-Ju, Turgat, Canucci still in there. And what about the tall figure behind them wearing 23, Takaoka from Japan? He's running a good race at the moment.
He's a very good track runner, Takaoka. But the halfway time in the men's race, 62 minutes and 30 seconds. And that would bring them home, if they were able to operate at this pace for the rest of the race, would bring them home in 2 hours and 5 minutes. So the men working now towards the fastest marathon of all time, and the fastest marathon runner of all time is in there, as is the second fastest marathon runner of all time, Paul Turgat. 2 hours 5 minutes and 48 for Turgat, when he finished second behind Canucci, who's just moving in behind Paul Turgat there in the black vest when he won the London Marathon. So the history of marathon running is being revised here. Are they going to be strong enough? Are they going to be determined enough? Is the weather going to stay kind? Slight breeze blowing down here at the finish area beside the lake where we are, starting to blow across them. Well, hopefully it just stays off from very strong winds for long enough to get this race completed. And I'm amazed at the crowds on the roads here. They've got tremendous support. The marathon really has been taken to the heart of Chicago. The whole town is dedicated today to the marathon, and the atmosphere on the way to the start was absolutely incredible. And here we are now, paying back what we were promised. Both races are heading towards the fastest time that we've ever seen in the men's race, maybe even in the women's race too. But so far, the foundations are being laid by the men and by the elite women for two of the most fantastic marathon races we've ever seen. Is the world record holder, number 2, as strong as he was in London? He's very competitive in the late stages. And can Paul Turgat reverse the record that he has in the marathon? 3 times second in the marathon. Can he make Chicago his first victory at a marathon? There's Paul, so concerned about the weather that he's decided to wear that long-sleeved white vest. He's got the gloves, he's got the hat, and he is so concerned about that. And there's the women. There's Paula Radcliffe, these athletes doing the utmost to combat the cold temperatures. The last mile for Paula Radcliffe looks as though it was a pretty quick one. Looks as though it was around about 5:10, 5:11, but again, we'll get that to you in a moment. That's 12 miles completed in 63 minutes and 15 seconds. That's just slightly over 2 hours 18 pace, but still, Paula Radcliffe is approaching the halfway point in the marathon faster than any woman's ever done before.
Well, almost halfway, and the pace picking up once more. 5 minutes and 11 seconds confirmed through that 12th mile as she approaches halfway. But I think more interesting than that even is the fact that Endereba is a good 15-20 meters at least now behind Paula Radcliffe, and so for the first time some clear air. You can probably just see Endereba, just caught a glimpse of her on that shot there. More than 20 meters by the looks of it behind Paula Radcliffe. Paula refusing to take anything on board at this stage. As they pass one of the drink stations, they're moving into Little Italy, one of the strong ethnic neighborhoods that they'll be heading through in the next stages of the race. They're hoping for some good support through here. Sounds as though they're getting it. And Paula will certainly have, I'm sure, all eyes on the halfway split. She's got a car going ahead of her there, which has got a clock on top of it, so she certainly will know exactly the sort of pace that she's running. And now, for the first time, very much on her own in the women's race. Just some men there for company, and it's good to see there that wearing number 43, Weldon Johnson, her pacemaker, has managed to stay with her, because a mile or two back looked as though he's beginning to struggle somewhat, and that looked as though it was what must have been the 13-mile mark that they've gone through, if not indeed halfway. They passed him with that gantry. He just had a look at his watch, so he's doing a good job there for Paula Radcliffe, but I've got a feeling that she's probably not too aware of him. Well, we mentioned London next year, 2003 version, and the details, if you want to enter, there they are. And a great occasion in store once more in April, I'm pretty sure. Might not see Paula Radcliffe there. She's certainly very much next year looking to concentrate on the track again. But there, for the first time, we can see the gap that's grown to Endereba. Now that must be at least 40, 50 meters perhaps. And looks as though if Paula certainly maintains this pace, if nothing happens untoward in the latter stages, that she can perhaps start to think that I'm beginning to dominate this race at this point. And Endereba is very strong though, and she can come back, but I know there was a lot of thought around that Endereba would struggle to stay with a fast pace if Paula was able to set it, and that seems to be the case at the moment.
Well, it certainly is, Steve. They've gone through the halfway point. The women, 69 minutes and 5 seconds. That would bring them home in 2 hours, 18 minutes and 10 seconds as Paula comes around that tight corner. That's 2 minutes faster for the first half of the race than Paula Radcliffe ran when she ran the race, the first marathon in London. And remember, in London, she got to the halfway and speeded up. Well, I wonder if she could even do that today. So she's through halfway. She's laid the base here now for a fantastic marathon performance. 69 minutes for the first half. What can she run for the second half? Can she keep it together at the same sort of pace for a world best time? Or can she even improve the pace? Can she pick it up a bit? She's through halfway. It's behind her now. 13 miles left for Paula Radcliffe on the way to a fabulous marathon performance.
I said that Paula has prepared meticulously for this event. She's got a very good team of people around her, but none more important than her husband, Gary Locke. And I asked her a couple of days ago how important was his role.
He's doing a great job as a manager for me and as a husband, in that he's there making it as easy as possible for me. He's there helping me pushing me on through all of the training and yelling at me, making sure that I get that work done.
Can you still keep up with you?
He can't anymore, no, that's why he's standing on the side yelling. No, he can on the track things, but the long runs he's taken to the bike now, and that's been good as well because he can practice handing out drinks and things like that. And then when we get in here, he's really just acting as that buffer just to make sure that I can have as ideal a preparation as possible while still fulfilling all the roles that I have to the sponsors and to the people around the Chicago Marathon.
He can be the sort of the fierce side of the Radcliffe group, if you like. You used to come across as the demure Paula. I was going to say...
No, he's not doing his reputation any good, but he's helping me, and he's doing a great job.
It's important that, though, isn't it, that protection?
Yes, it is, because it can, I mean, everybody wants a little piece of you, and by the time you've fulfilled all that and everybody's taken a little bit, you can just end up very drained on the start line, and that's not what I want. It's all about running well and being full of life and energetic on that start line, so he's trying to just make sure that I have as little sort of yanking in all directions as possible.
And, you know, what do Gary and Paula do when they're not being Gary and Paula, the public face, if you like? You know, will you have time, just, you know, holidays and downtime away from running?
Oh, definitely. After this, I'm taking a month off, and we're just going to travel around a little bit. And
is he allowed then to say what you do?
Oh, I turn his phone off then, because otherwise his phone just goes mad at the moment, and every 2 minutes it's ringing, and it's not good for him. It stresses him, and so when we go on holiday, I turn it off, and he forgets about athletics, and we forget about running, and we just do different things. I mean, last night we just decided we've had enough of this, we just escaped, so we just got in a taxi and just went off and found a little restaurant and just get away from everything.
Well, Paula paying tribute to Gary's role, and between them, they've certainly got her here in fine shape and things going very well at the moment. We actually bumped into them on the way at the course this morning. I think Gary looked a lot more nervous than Paula did. I think that's often the case, isn't it? I think it's more difficult sometimes to watch than to actually be the athlete getting there taking part. But she's going well at the moment.
When we saw this morning, Steve, she didn't have that blue hat on. Good job as well, otherwise I'm sure something would have been said, wouldn't it?
Definitely. Well, funnily enough, you're talking about discarding clothing. The pacemaker next to her, Weldon Johnson, has taken off his hat, and we can go back to the men's race fairly shortly, as I'm sure we can. In fact, there we are. The news is that Paul Turgat has taken off his long-sleeved shirt. He was running in a white top before, now wearing number 3 on the right-hand side of your picture. Still got the hat on, but the long-sleeved top has gone. Actually, talking about tops, Brendan, I was talking to Canucci the other day, and as you know, he's a lifelong Sunderland fan. I'm not sure he's still in the leading group there, but I did promise him he's asked for a Sunderland shirt. I will get him one.
Oh, you're not going to go on about that again. I mean, he's clearly not a Sunderland supporter. He didn't know anything about Peter Reid not being still involved at all. Canucci just beside Paul Turgat there, but again, in this very hard marathon, you burdening him with the idea of being a Sunderland supporter. It's a myth.
You weren't there. He came up and he did ask, and he was very disappointed to hear that Peter Reid had gone. But Peter Reid's watching this, and his fan is doing pretty well at the moment. Canucci, he's in the dark strip, just on the right-hand side of your picture, wearing number 2, tracking Paul Turgat all the way. We've got Ben Kimondu, last year's winner, wearing number 1 behind the pacemaker there. El Mouaziz wearing number 5. Turgat wears 3. All of the big names very much involved, and this one really boiling up. We haven't mentioned John Kagwe either. He's wearing number 9 at the back there. All of them almost in Indian file behind Ronald Mogaka, the pacemaker. Actually helps, doesn't it, to have the P on the number, just in case you weren't aware. Maybe that happened after last year. I'm not sure whether that's a new innovation to the race after the pacemaker went on to win the thing.
It must have been quite exciting for the spectators to see that happen, but it certainly wasn't to Paul Turgat's liking. Paul now taking off the long-sleeved shirt, getting down to business, past the halfway point, approaching the 15-mile point for the men, whilst the women approaching the 14-mile point. And here we are back in the women's race. And I just reflect back that the last time we televised a race, an athletics event live from America, apart from the Olympic Games that is, was when Paula Radcliffe won the World Junior Cross Country Championships back in Boston, 1992. Since then, 9 years later, she won her first World Cross Country Senior title. 9 attempts later, she won her first track title this summer, and here she is in her second marathon. And the reason we're here is to watch Paula Radcliffe. Can she make this journey for us one real excitement and real pleasure? So far, it looks as though Paula Radcliffe is doing what she's been doing all summer, rewriting the record books. What a year she's had. Won the World Cross Country in Leopardstown for an opening race. A couple of weeks later, after some trials and tribulations with injuries, she was guided back by Gerard Hartmann to win the London Marathon in that record time. Second fastest marathon ever, Paula's debut in the marathon. Then she came to the track and won the Commonwealth Games. What a great event that was, and what an event that was in Manchester. Paula Radcliffe is getting all the accolades for being the athlete of the year, but I think the event of the year was the Commonwealth Games in Manchester. The crowd that came and showed that British public can support in the Manchester and the northwest of England. They came out in the tens of thousands, and Paula Radcliffe says one of the most special events in her whole athletic career was winning the Commonwealth Games in Manchester with her home crowd. The athlete who was born in Cheshire, grew up early life in Cheshire and then moved down to Bedford. And then she topped that off by a fabulous run in the European Championships in the 10,000 meters. And then a couple of warm-up races all indicated that she was in great form and in great shape. Now the question is, can she keep this going for the next 10 miles? Can she keep it together? Can she keep the determination and the strength? And she says that in the marathon, she knows, there goes the hat, and there reveals the true Paula Radcliffe. Now she's only got the gloves and the long socks.
Well, down to business. Warming up, things starting to hurt, but that gap that was back to Endereba's looks as though it's perhaps shortened a little bit. You never quite know with the foreshortening of the camera there, but certainly looks as though Endereba's a little bit closer than she was. We told her that she was a good 6 or 7 seconds back. Now maybe 4 or 5 seconds back.
Yeah, I know.
So perhaps a lot more to come in this race yet. She hasn't got this one won by any stretch of the imagination. Endereba is close enough that if Paula Radcliffe just starts to wilt, starts to tire, that she's close enough to strike. She's certainly closer than she was maybe a mile or so back. Good support. As I said, they start to go through the various neighborhoods, and it has to be said, the next few miles not through the most salubrious part of Chicago, but Paula won't be bothered about the scenery one little bit. And we'll keep an eye very much on the times, see whether the pace is starting to slow at all, whether that particularly quick start is starting to take its toll. You wouldn't expect it to just yet, but this a very different way of running the marathon to that which we saw in London. Unless, of course, she intends speeding up again, but much more difficult, of course, off this fast pace. It's going well still at the moment, receiving good help from Weldon Johnson there in the yellow strip P43. He's doing a sterling job for Paula Radcliffe. This is a pace inside his own particular personal best. And some big gaps now. You were mentioning the fact that Paula operating at a pace which wouldn't see too many men ahead of her. And if this group does break up, she may well find herself pretty much on her own, so she'll be hoping to have as much help as she can from the guys around. On the men's race, one pacemaker left, but I've got a feeling that things are starting to slow down somewhat in the men's race. Certainly the 14th mile was pretty slow, 5 minutes and 4 seconds, which was very slow indeed, the slowest mile of the race. And you just get the feeling, because they're bunching there, that things are starting to slow down and they're maybe starting to have a little bit of think about the pace that they've been running.
Well, the last mile of the men's race, 4:47, and that's slowed a bit. The men through 15 miles now. 11 miles remaining and everything to race for. The pacemaker's doing a strong job to the halfway point, but now some of the top athletes are taking a bit closer order. And this is the closest that the world record holder, Khalid Kanuchi, has been to the front. He staged it, he just sat off the pace, worked his way through, and there, the black vest of Khalid Kanuchi now goes closer to the front. Paul Turgat for the moment, prepared to settle back there. And we're looking at the two fastest marathon runners of all time, locking horns in a marathon which so far has been run faster than any marathon has ever been run before. But this man, number 5, shouldn't be discounted. El Mouaziz, the Moroccan, twice winner of the London Marathon, following the pacemaker, Magaga, number P47. Looked over his shoulder, he saw Paul Turgat on one side, he saw Khalid Kanuchi on the other side, and right behind him in the white vest, El Mouaziz, the Moroccan, number 5. So there they are. Turgat, Kanuchi, and now for the first time we have an athlete other than a pacemaker in the lead, and it's El Mouaziz. He likes to be aggressive in marathons, he likes to go from a long way out, and he's being very quickly followed by Khalid Kanuchi, his former countryman in the black vest, and also responding quite quickly there is Paul Turgat. So the athletes we expected, 3 of these athletes finished 1st, 2nd and 4th in London, and here they are at the other end of the year, showing that London form is pretty special. The only one missing from the first 4 is Gebre Selassie, who's struggling with an injury back in Ethiopia, expected to run a race in Ethiopia in a couple of weeks' time. But the best men in the world are here in Chicago, being supported by this crowd. The weather has been very kind to them so far, a little cool but not breezy. And El Mouaziz, now he's going to put them through it. He's going to start and run this race in a very positive manner. But Khalid Kanuchi knows him extremely well, and he knows what to expect from El Mouaziz. So that last mile, 4:53. 16 to 17 miles there. That's the 17th mile completed in 1 hour 21 and 7 seconds, which is still under 2 hours 6 pace, still under world record pace. But this is the bit that's going to make the difference. Is there somebody here who's prepared to make them hurt? And in the women's race, we're looking at Paula Radcliffe there. We look overhead, you're looking down the road, and there's Paula Radcliffe leading in the women's race. A gap of only about 15 to 20 meters from the world record holder for the marathon, Catherine Dereba. So the leading group in the women's race has got the 2 of them in it, the 2 fastest marathon. There's Paula Radcliffe, and just behind, just coming around the corner in the white vest is Catherine Dereba, and that gap is now about 20 to 30 meters, but it certainly isn't over yet. It is quick, it's going to be quick, it's going to be a special marathon, this one. The 2 fastest marathon runners of all time in the women's race, 30 yards apart. Speed up a little.
And news on the 3rd athlete, Brendan Shibui, we're told is now about 30 seconds adrift of the leaders. So it looks as though it's down to just the 2 of them. And Dereba, a lot of experience now. Has had a bit of an up and down year. She's run some quick times in the shorter distances, was disappointing in the Boston Marathon early on in the year. She was actually in London, run the Golden Jubilee 10K, beat Susie Power, who we saw, of course, run very well in the Great North Run last weekend. She ran a personal best for 10 miles not so long ago, so came into this race well prepared, but perhaps not quite ready for Paula Radcliffe. But she's not too far behind, and certainly Paula will have to keep her foot down, keep running well, because she doesn't want to give any hint to Dereba behind her that there's any chance of being able to catch. So, Brendan, an update on the last mile.
Well, that mile, 5 minutes and 13 seconds, 1 hour 23 and 59 through 16 miles. So 10 miles remaining in the women's marathon, and Paula Radcliffe is still on schedule for a time almost a minute under the world record for the marathon, under 2 hours 18. The world record for the marathon being 2 hours 18 minutes and 47 seconds, held by Catherine Dereba in this race last year. Can Chicago, the Speedway race, the course so flat, and Paula Radcliffe taking advantage of that. Meanwhile, back in the men's race, and it's the Japanese leader, new leader, the man who we've seen run very well on the track, Toshinari Takaoka, a finalist in the 5,000 meters and the 10,000 meters in the Sydney Olympics. So he's now translating his track speed onto the road, and he really is making a bid now at opening the yards there that he's opened up on the world record holder and Paul Turgat and El Muaziz. A fast opening mile there from the Japanese athlete Takaoka. Well, this is a turn up for the book, and this is a very aggressive approach here. Less than 10 miles remaining in the men's race, and Takaoka suddenly spurts to the front, opens up a few yards, settling down there.
Well, 4:47 for that mile, picked up from the previous one, and look what it's been able to do for him. And this really is a big surprise, because this is a 2:9 athlete running at a pace inside 2 minutes and 5, with all of the best athletes in the world at the marathon distance trailing behind him at the moment. And that gap is growing. Nobody really trying to give chase. Looks like last year's winner Ben Kimondu just trying to lead the pack back to Takaoka. But he must be feeling very, very good, because of this quick pace, he feels confident enough to push on at this stage. Maybe just felt that things beginning to slow, and you do have to take your opportunity at times, but still a long way to go. So in both the men's and the women's race, we're seeing them operating at a pace not seen before. Chicago proving to be, once again, a fast course. There's a lonely part of the course through this section. Not long before they actually reach Chinatown. And then into the part of the race which can be so damaging, the last 6 or 7 miles. But for Takaoka, this is a real bid for glory at a fairly early stage. But we can see behind him there, Canucci just pouring some water over his head. I can't believe he's particularly warm here, but just taking a drink as well. Too many big names in that pack behind for my liking, Brendan, for Takaoka to have made this bid at this stage.
And it's a bit sudden. It's a bit of a, it really is a bit of a burst. I mean, you know, to get to the front and then just open up like that so quickly. He's a good runner though. Best times on the track of 13 minutes and 13 seconds for 5,000 meters, 27:35 for 10,000 meters. He's 7th in the Olympic Games in the 10,000 meters. That fantastic race that Paul Turgat finished inches behind the great Haile Gebrselassie in Sydney a 2 years ago, and that man was 7th in that race. So he's got the track pedigree, and the Japanese have got the tradition of the marathon. And interestingly enough, the only other network that's here representing their country broadcasting this event live are the Japanese network, so maybe they knew something that we didn't know. But this man is certainly giving them a run for their money at this point.
El Muaziz has just drifted away from the rest of the pack as well. The Moroccan, who's got such a good record in the London Marathon. And one or two people were whispering around the hotel that if you wanted to look beyond Turgat and Canucci, then El Muaziz would be the man you would look to. Was 4th in London this year, despite a fall as well. Still ran a very, very quick time there, ran inside 2 minutes and 2 hours and 7 minutes. And heading for a quick time once more here, and at this stage helping the group to get back to Takaoka. He's just bridging that gap between the leader and the pack, which contains Khalid Canucci, the fastest marathon runner in the world. And you know, Brendan, he doesn't run a bad one, does he? He did drop out in Edmonton, but when he's finished a marathon, they've always been very, very quick. He has an incredible average time of, I think, just outside 2 hours and 7 minutes for the marathons he's run.
That's exactly right, but there's the women's race. And the last mile for Paula Radcliffe, 5 minutes and 10 seconds. So she's running a great race here. 1 hour, 29 minutes and 9 seconds at 17 miles, and that is still on schedule for a time of under 2 hours 18 minutes, almost a minute faster at this stage of the race than the world best time for the marathon. So can Paula keep it together? Can she just hold the pace? She looks extremely comfortable here. She looks great at this point in the race. And the gap, we're just wondering about that gap. We can only see what you can see, but the gap was about 30 or 40 meters before. I wonder if there's any change there. That 5 minutes and 10 seconds, that's a pretty quick mile there at this stage, but that's what she did last time. The only other marathon she ran, she did it like this. She accelerated from the halfway point. So Paula Radcliffe, this time she's got a bit of company. She's got a bit of help. The athletes running around her really are helping her, guiding her through this course. And once again, Paula Radcliffe finds herself with a small group of athletes, and once again she finds herself leading in this small group of athletes. But you know, when you think back, when this race started in 1977, the world record for the marathon was 2:39 25 years ago, and here we have an athlete running close to 2 hours 18 minutes. 11 minutes that record's improved in the 25 years since this race has been held. And there the men's race still being led by the Javanese athlete. He's moved a little bit ahead, but El Mouaziz, the Moroccan, 4:41 last mile, and El Mouaziz, well, that's why he opened that gap, but El Mouaziz, twice winner of the London Marathon, is moving close towards him as they go through Chinatown. And it's Tagaoga, El Mouaziz in the white vest, Paul Turgat in the red vest, and Khalid Kanuchi, the fastest marathon runner in the world. So those three are actually three of the first four in this year's London Marathon, and the two fastest marathon runners of all time in that group. Khalid Kanuchi in the position he likes to be, just behind. He doesn't like to be in the front too early, but this is going to be a great race, and the Japanese, I just think, sense is slowing a little.
Yes, he made his bid for glory. And, well, they haven't caught him yet. You get the feeling that certainly in the next mile or two, that's what will happen. Just seems so odd that when the pace was running, or was going so quickly anyway, that he decided he needed to push on. No pacemakers left, though, and it's very much down to the elite athletes now. If we are going to get a fast time, and Takaoka certainly doing his part in maintaining world record pace.
But that's great, that the race is on now. The pace has been set to try and give them a chance. Takaoka, surprisingly, has taken over in the lead. And there he is, Takaoka, from the three talented athletes, the athletes who you'd be betting on to win. El Mouaziz, Paul Turgat, Khalid Kanuchi in the black vest, the fastest marathon runner the world's ever seen, running right alongside the second fastest marathon runner the world's ever seen, Paul Turgat. Can Turgat make this the one where he loses the tag of eternal runner-up and comes home and wins this one? Or can Kanuchi, on the course and in the city he loves to run, where he set a world best time, can he win it? Or can El Mouaziz, who we saw twice run very aggressively in London, can we see him come home? Or is Takaoka, the Japanese, going to surprise them all? He still looks comfortable, he still looks strong, but this race is now beginning to bubble and boil.
Well, we can go back to the women. Well, back with the women. Paula, for the first time, pushing on ahead of the men that she's had around her all the time so far. Really feel as though Paula is growing and growing in confidence at this stage. As I said, she has not looked behind, but must be aware that Endereba now is disappearing rather rapidly into the distance. If Gary Locke is on that lead vehicle just ahead of her, perhaps giving us some signs about the gap that's there, the gap that's appearing. And Paula pushing on now. We asked the question as to whether she could run the second half of the race even quicker than the first half. Well, she's giving it a go. If nothing else, certainly maintaining the world record pace which she's been on since the very start. Well, Brendan, on screen there we can see the evidence of that, not slowing down at all.
That last mile, 5 minutes and 12 seconds. That brings her up to 18 miles, 1 hour, 34 minutes, 21 seconds. Still well ahead of that 2 hours 18 barrier. And the thing about it is she's now 15 seconds clear of Catherine Ndereba, who we can just see coming over the bridge at the back of the shot. So there's Catherine Ndereba in second place, but that gap now is 15 seconds, and Paula Radcliffe looks to be renewed with her confidence and in her approach. She had the men around her, and now all she's got for company are the lead bikes and the lead vehicles. Another twist and another turn, and Paula Radcliffe, the miles clicking away now, and Paula Radcliffe approaching the 19-mile point, 7 miles away from what looks like to be an amazing performance. She looks tired now, not surprisingly. She's breathing quite heavily. She's running extremely hard. She's running extremely quickly. She's running faster at this point than any woman has ever run before. Is it going to end in glory for Paula Radcliffe, the athlete who's so disciplined in her preparation, so talented in the way she can apply herself to the preparation of marathon running? It's all right wanting to run well, it's all right wanting to run good marathons, but you've got to be prepared to do the work and do the training. And there is no one more prepared, more businesslike and more professional in her approach to distance running in the world than this woman. And after 9 years of trying to win titles on the track, she's finally won one. She won two. She won the 10,000 meters and the 5,000 meters, and this in a second marathon in a race. She always wanted to run the marathon. She always wanted to run in London, and she always wanted to win a big one. Well, she started off in such glory winning in London, and is this one going to end in glory too?
Well, look at this. We've been doubting him and saying that perhaps he was being a little exuberant, but Takaoka is moving away from the field. He just run 4:47 for his last mile, maintaining the sort of pace he's set over the last 3 or 4 miles. And it's the group who seem to have given up at the moment. They're the ones who are slowing. He's not speeding up particularly, but they've certainly slowed down. I don't know whether they're playing a little bit of cat and mouse, whether Canucci and Turgat, El Moziz are so busy looking at each other and assuming that Takaoka won't be able to maintain this to the finish, and that they're starting to look to each other. But if they do that for too long and this guy keeps going, then the race will be over.
He's through 20 miles, 1 hour, 35 minutes and 22 seconds. Nobody's ever run faster than that through 20 miles in a successful marathon. So is he going to change the rules here? Is he going to change the time? He's on schedule for a world best time. The world best time being set here by Khalid Canucci. Sorry, initially being set here by Khalid Canucci, but the present time was set by Khalid Canucci in London. So he's through 21 miles now, 5 miles remaining for the Japanese. And the chasing group now realize that this man is intent on trying to win this. He's trying to win it from a long way out. He's working extremely hard from a long way out. And the group now working together. And sometimes when you get a talented group like that, they sometimes settle with one another. They sometimes settle together and try, and sometimes that slows them. But now they realize that this man means business and they're going to have to work to get it.
Well, he's working very hard at the front to build that lead and try and get away, and somebody else who's working particularly hard is Paula Radcliffe. Can't quite see her there she is. Paula pushing this group on. She's leading this group. They're not pushing her anymore. And whatever time she finishes up with here, I think we're underlining the fact that Paula Radcliffe and the marathon are synonymous with each other, or will be. It's certainly an event which she seems ideally suited to. But when I spoke to her a couple of days ago, I asked her what her long-term plans were.
I sat down after London and thought, well, probably only want to run maybe 2 marathons before Athens, and then I'll make the decision whether or not to run it in Athens. I definitely won't be running it in the World Championships in Paris next year. I want to run the 10,000 metres there, because it's still very important to me to win a world title on the track, 10,000. So yeah, it was deciding that I would probably only want to run 2, and then whether I would do it now or next year, and I just decided I wanted to do it now.
Running here now, as you said, is something which you took a decision a few months back. But is there any time in that period you've had 2 great championships on the track? There must have been times when you maybe thought, oh, I'm not sure that I want to carry on training so hard, because obviously the preparation is critical, and you've got to time it absolutely right, and you don't want to get injured, and you don't want to catch flu and all of that sort of thing. After everything that's happened in the last year, so was there ever a point where you thought, oh, I wish I hadn't sort of taken this next step?
No, I think it was always something that it was really important to me to come here and just to run well and see what I could do here. So I took a few days off after Munich to make sure that I was fresh, because I knew that block of training would be hard. It's more when you get near this stage and you think, oh God, I don't want to lose all the hard work that I've done by picking up little things. So it's now that I get paranoid.
Paula, though, going very well today and getting quicker all the time. Said that she's the one pushing the pace along now. She's just run the last mile in 5 minutes and 6 seconds, and still well inside the world record schedule. We were looking for somewhere around about 1 minute and 40 exactly, around about this stage, but she's a good 30 seconds or more inside of that. And no signs at the moment, Brendan, that she's slowing, no signs that this is beginning to take its toll. This is the sort of thing that we saw in London, where she just seemed to get stronger and stronger as the race went on. She's decided that she's had as much help as she's going to get from those around her, that she's going to start to push herself now. The gap, I'm told, to Endereba has now grown to 22 seconds, and at this stage of the race, with Paula Radcliffe in the front, that is a winning lead.
Well, she got to the halfway point in London and she ran faster in the second half. She's got to the halfway point here and she's run the fastest mile, 5:05 for the 14th mile, and then an incredible 5:06 for mile 19. So mile 19, she's at 1 hour, 39 minutes and 27 seconds, and that is well up the world best time, a minute faster than the world best time on schedule here. So Paula Radcliffe, can she keep it going? She's clearly working hard now. She's clearly very tired from the exertions of the last few miles. But she came here so well prepared from an incredible summer season. Only a couple of races, but every single one of them meant something. This marathon really does mean something, and a world time beckons for Paula Radcliffe if she can possibly just hold it together. Can she be as strong and determined over the last 6 miles as she has been over the first 19? So there she is, approaching the 20-mile point. Very close to 20 miles. So just over 6 miles remaining from Paula Radcliffe. She's had good company and good support, but now that group that's been with her is down to 3 or 4 athletes. They've helped her. They've guided her around the corners. The crowd have been remarkable in their numbers, and the gap between Paula Radcliffe and the fastest marathon runner of all time, Catherine Endereba, is about 22 seconds and growing. And are we looking at the fastest female marathon runner in history? So far, the answer to that is yes. But the last 6 miles in the marathon, lots of things can change. And can she stay strong enough, mentally and physically?
Well, that's the view of Paula Radcliffe that athletes have had all year long. She's shown them a clean pair of heels time after time, and seems to be doing the same again here. Now let's just go back and see how things are progressing in the men's race. That lead now for Takaoka has grown to 13 seconds, but just looking back down the road there, seems as though that little group behind is just maybe beginning to break up. El Muaziz, Turgat and Canucci. They really do have to decide to give chase to this guy if they are going to catch him. They're going to run out of time. It's all right thinking he'll come back to us, but he doesn't seem to be slowing too much at all. And it's up to these or certainly somebody in there, so somebody's going to have to try and bridge that gap, otherwise they're certainly very much running for second place. To be fair, they're running inside world record pace. He is running around 30-35 seconds inside world record pace, and they're 13 seconds adrift, getting caught up in the lead vehicles there. Takaoka going well.
And back in the women's race, the last mile in the women's race, 5 minutes and 15 seconds. So Paula Radcliffe, she's through 20 miles in an incredible 1 hour 44 minutes and 42 seconds. And that is a fantastic time for 20 miles. Lots of 20-mile races in Great Britain over the years. Not many of them being run faster, clearly, than Paula Radcliffe's. Now, that last mile, though, was the slowest mile in the second half of the race. 5 minutes and 15 seconds. And I just wonder, she's clearly working hard. Can she keep now working and holding it together? A few signs of tiredness, not surprisingly, but the mental strength, the physical preparation, the determination, and there's a classic shot of Paula Radcliffe on the roads of Chicago, on schedule for a world best time in the marathon, to add to the other performances she's had this year. And once again, even though there are a group of men around her, she wants to force it along. She wants to run as fast as she possibly can. She's come here to do that. She's got 20 miles behind her. She's got 6 miles remaining, the hardest 6 miles, clearly, of this marathon. And the setup, the halfway time of 69 minutes, is she going to keep that for the second half? Is she going to be able to run 69 minutes or slower or faster in the second half of this marathon? And you can see there now, Paula Radcliffe, she'll tell us later, but this is clearly into the 21st mile in the marathon, clearly beginning to hurt her. Well, so it should at this pace, but she's used to it. Her confidence this year has been absolutely fantastic. And look at the races she's run, and look at the races she's won, and look at the way she's won them. Is this going to be another one in this chapter? What a glorious year for Paula Radcliffe. And is it going to end, and this is the end of the season, is it going to end in the manner that she wants it to? You can see her now working. The signs are, when her head begins to bob a little, you know she's working hard then. But she's not frightened of hard work. She never has been.
She's gained so many admirers over the last year or so, beyond those who already knew of her as a great athlete, but like everybody else, we're just hoping that she could turn herself into a winner, and she's certainly done that with a vengeance this year. But this is where I think she will feel absolutely at home. The marathon, so suited to her, and I think it's suited to her for a number of reasons, that never mind just the basic talent, but she is such a good planner, Paula Radcliffe. She leaves no stone unturned. She takes care of every single detail, and you have to do that in the marathon. You only get 1 or 2 chances in the year. You must get everything right. You've got to arrive on the start line with 100% confidence that you can go out and run like this and not suffer in the later stages, and she's done it once again.
The will to prepare for the marathon, present in abundance in Paula Radcliffe. She wants to be the best. She's utterly determined to be the best, and she's demonstrating here that she can be the best. The men who are helping her so far, there's only one of them left. Another tight bend there. Paula Radcliffe comes round that bend, and the gap now is growing beyond 25 seconds for the world's fastest marathon runner, Catherine Dereva. But we're now looking so far at a woman who is doing what no other woman has done before in the marathon. And I hope at some point, after reading that article in the Chicago Tribune, I hope she meets the guy that wrote it, who was describing her as an eccentric and a composite of oddball characters from Monty Python's Flying Circus. I hope she gets a chance to see him after this race. I hope he eats a little bit of humble pie, because this isn't a British eccentric. This is a British distance runner, the like of which we've never seen before. And look at her now, she's accelerating, she's really running quicker. She's stretching out, she's working hard. She's so determined, and at this point of the race, the confidence comes and goes, but at this point now, confidence is oozing from Paula Radcliffe. Yep.
This is a part of the course where they've changed direction 2 or 3 times. I'm just wondering, as we watch the flags down here at the finish line, just starting to pick up a little bit, and when they get into the very much closing stages towards Lake Michigan again, whether that will be a factor. Hasn't been so far, or doesn't seem to have been so far. We've had some quick miles and slower miles when they have been with and against the breeze, but certainly hasn't slowed them down. 5:10 the last mile for Paula Radcliffe, so once again maintaining this very, very quick pace. It has been a little bit up and down, but that pace continues to bring her closer and closer to a world record. Only Weldon Johnson there with her now, as Brendan was saying, the only man left that can perhaps help her in the latter stages, and she may well just thank him a little bit when they do get to the finish line if he's still close to her. But you can see the damage that she's done to the rest of them. You just think how many there were around her at around about halfway, and it's so difficult to run marathons like this. Go quicker in the second half and just pick up all the time. And that's what sets the world-class runners apart from those behind.
1:49.52 through 21 miles for Paula Radcliffe. That time looks as though it would bring her home a minute inside the world best time. A sub 2:18 marathon beckons for Paula Radcliffe. She looks to be confident still. She looks to be controlled. She looks as though she's running well. The mile time there, 5:10, tells you that she's able to muster those kinds of times when she's at this stage of the race, and as obviously tired as she is, then that is a very good sign. Back men's race, the leader, the Japanese athlete Takaoka, still running extremely well, and the other group doing anything about it. Well, there's the first man who wants to change it. That's Khaled Kanuchi, and this man is very, very powerful, very strong and very determined in the late stages. He really has got a trademark, and that is he runs the last couple of miles like no other man has ever run in the marathon before. Is he going to be quick enough to catch the Japanese, or is the Japanese going to prove this marathon to be a real turn-up for the book? There's Khaled Kanuchi in the black, there's Paul Turgat in the red, and there's El Muaziz of Morocco in the white. Those three athletes chasing the surprise leader, Toshinari Takaoka of Japan. And just along from us in the commentary box, the Japanese commentators who are broadcasting this race live back to Japan are going absolutely crazy. And there you can see them coming around the corner, and you can see the gap now. Khaled Kanuchi can see the Japanese athlete. He's got him in his sights. He's now determined to try and run away from Turgat. But the reason he's trying to run away from Turgat this time is not to run a fast time, it's to try and catch the Japanese athlete. The time is quick, the time is fast. It's close to the world best time held by this man Kanuchi, and he looks to be full of running now.
Well, he said it's his trademark, Brendan. He says that in all of the last 2 miles he always picks up the pace. He runs something like 4:20, 4:30 for his last 2 miles, even on his long runs, because he wants to simulate what happens at the end of the marathon. And this, as you said, is something which he excels at. But is that gap too big? The last we knew it was about 13, 14 seconds. It doesn't look to be too much less than that at this point, but still enough time for that gap to close. And I would guess now around about 10 seconds or so behind Kanuchi. So perhaps that gap is closing. Of course, this is so much new territory for Takaoka. He's running at a pace way inside his personal best. He just has to keep this going. Doesn't matter whether Kanuchi catches him or not, he's going to be rewarded with a very, very fast time. But Kanuchi, half an eye on the man in front, half an eye on the clock as well, I'm sure. The world record still very much beckons in both the men's and the women's race. Paula at the moment certainly a little bit further inside than the men are, because they've started to slip a little bit, but not too much. And for Takaoka, he really is starting just to tire a little bit. Look at that, Brendan. Kanuchi certainly looks as though he's beginning to reel him in rather quickly now. I think it's Takaoka who's slowing rather than Kanuchi speeding up too much.
Look at the leg speed from Kanuchi and compare that with the leg speed of the Japanese athlete. Canucci really means business now. This is the way he wants to run the marathon. This is the way he tends to run the marathon. And there's Khalid Canucci now knows that he's gaining very quickly on Tagawoga. Tagawoga running at a speed 4 minutes faster than he's ever run before. Well, that's a bit of a tall order. That's a bit of an ask. He is a good track runner. He is quick in the late stages, but Canucci looks as though he's got him in his sights. And that gap beginning to close very quickly. And look at Canucci. Once you get in a position like that and you really begin to believe that you're running faster than the man ahead of you, then amazing things happen. The Japanese is tiring, Canucci speeding up. Canucci has got rid of the two athletes that he was most worried about. His fellow countryman, El Muaziz, and the athlete who finished second behind him in London, Paul Turgat. And now Canucci, you just sense he's going to come past the Japanese athlete very, very quickly. Now, is this the crucial point in the marathon? The long-time leader, Tagawoga of Japan, being caught. Here's Canucci. This is going to produce a roar from the crowd who are standing here at the finish. Khalid Canucci, formerly of Morocco, now representing America, living in America now, spends all of his time here, races here, and has run a world best time in the marathon here. This is the race that he loves. He absolutely loves to run in Chicago. Set a world best time in 99, finished second here in 98, won it in 97, and the crowd are watching the big screen behind us, and they're beginning to cheer as they see the crucial move in the marathon from Khalid Canucci. He's got a gap over the two Fiat athletes, over Turgat and El Muaziz, and now he's so close to Tagawoga. Now what's going to happen now? Will Tagawoga just let him go? He looks across, he sees Canucci go past. The crowd at the finish roar in approval of the man who's become the hero of this Chicago Marathon. And very quickly he's straight past the Japanese and he's into his running, and the Japanese athlete now is going to suffer over the last couple of miles. And there's Paula Radcliffe and her last mile, another quick one, 5:12 for the last mile, and we finish over the next 3 miles. She's got to average 5:35 for each mile to set a world best time, and there hasn't been a mile in this race so far where she hasn't run faster than 5:35. So all she's got to do now between her and a world record is just hold it together. She can afford to slow a little, she can afford to relax a little if anything, and this looks to be Paula Radcliffe on the way to a world best time in the marathon. And here looks as though it's the same thing at 25 miles. There goes Khalid Canucci.
They call it the Canucci Tunnel because this is the point where in 99, when he broke the world record, he broke away, entered the tunnel with Turgat and came out the other end into the daylight on his own. And certainly once more at this stage of the race he's done the same sort of thing. He's very much on course, close to world record pace. Canucci, the darling of the crowd here in Chicago, knows this course so well now and has timed his effort to perfection, it seems.
3 miles remaining for Khalid Canucci and a world best time. Sorry, the last split there, we've got just over a mile remaining for Khalid Canucci, and the time split we've got looks as though Khalid Canucci is running fast enough here to shatter his own world best time in the marathon. The weather's been kind, the crowds have been supportive, and the man who set a world best here previously looks as though he can keep going and set a world best time again.
Last couple of twists and turns, he's come out of the Canucci Tunnel. He's now going to come up the rampway up onto Lakeshore Drive, and he'll run along that freeway for about half a mile before he enters the south end of Grant Park, and the finish line will beckon. The American, former Moroccan, whose career on the track didn't give him the satisfaction that he wanted. He turned to the roads, he turned to the marathon distance, and with one exception, the World Championships in Edmonton last year, he has been the world's best since 1999, when he came to this course and set a world record. That was a surprise on that occasion. He came back and won again the following year in 2000. He didn't go to the Sydney Olympics, wasn't able to represent America there. He had the disappointment, as I said, of Edmonton last year, but came back with a vengeance in London this year to break his own world record. And at the moment, looks as though that time may be due for some rewriting.
But we're not getting enough information here over the last couple of miles. We won't get enough information here to be able to tell exactly what's happening, but it looks as though Khaled Kanuchi is running faster than he's ever run before. He's won this race 3 times. He won in 97. He set a world best in 99. He won in 2000. He missed out in 2001 after running the World Championships marathon and being very disappointing in that by dropping out. But here he is here now in the Chicago Marathon, trying to win it for the 4th time, looking as though he will win it for the 4th time. And a last mile of just over 4:40 would be enough to bring him home in a world best time.
Well, as you said, Brendan, we had been getting really good splits all the way through this race, but in the last 2 or 3 miles the information hasn't been easy to get hold of, and certainly the pace was slipping a little bit. He's still within sight of that world record, but it will only be down to the ability of Kanuchi to pick things up in the latter stages if we are to see that record go. It's going to be very, very close. He must know it's close, but I tell you what, perhaps, as we can just see the trees rustling a little bit, the breeze that's in their face now, this uphill ramp just might take its toll in these latter stages. Indeed, he's looking behind, and perhaps with an eye on making sure that this race is won rather than the times. But certainly, it's going to be quick, but whether it's to be a world record or not, well, we'll find out in about a minute and a half.
Well, whatever happens here now, we are looking at the fastest marathon runner of all time. The world record holder for the marathon, time of 2 hours, 5 minutes and 38 seconds, set in London. And when he came up that ramp there, I thought he was leaning into it and trying to accelerate. Now, is he going to let it go, and is he going to run as fast as he possibly can in this very late stage? Khaled Kanuchi, he's defeated the men he was worried about, and the surprise packet, Takaoka, still hanging on to that 2nd place there, and he's been challenged by El Muaziz and Paul Turgat, but this man is only being challenged by himself. Khaled Kanuchi on the way to a fabulous performance in Chicago. They're cheering for him. They're going crazy here at the finish. They may know something that we don't, but here's Khaled Kanuchi coming into sight of the crowd at the finish. There you can see the crowd lining both sides of the finish. The running time is just over 2 hours and 5 minutes. It's going to be extremely close to that world best time. It may elude him by a small amount, but Kanuchi, the resident American now, who's won this three times before, on his way to a 4th victory, and the clock is ticking. 2 hours, 5 minutes and 20 seconds. He's well within sight. He's well in sight there now. Can he do it? He probably can't.
Finish line approaching, but not quick enough for Khaled Kanuchi. It's going to be another superlative fast time. A brilliant performance by the Moroccan, or former Moroccan, now running for the United States of America. As the flags are flying, they're cheering him home. The world record has gone, but nonetheless, he wins Chicago once more in a super fast time. Khaled Kanuchi, king of the marathon. Great race for 2nd place. Looks like Daniel Njenga, who stayed with that lead pack all the way through, is going to take 2nd place in a great race with Turgat behind him. But for Kanuchi, they cannot argue anymore that this man is the best marathon runner in the world. But for him, I'm sure to have come so close to a world record. We can see the emotion for him there. That's his wife and his manager. They do a very good job, the same as Paula's team do, of getting him right on the day. But that was hard work in the latter stages. They were into the wind for the last 2-3 miles, and it just started to tell a little bit. He had to work so hard to haul in the gap of Takaoka, the Japanese athlete who did so much to make this such a good race. But I think it was an Njenga who came in second ahead of Takaoka and Turga. It was a very close finish while we had pictures on Canucci. But Brendan, this man has proven once again that he's capable of producing the run when it counts on the big day.
This is the best marathon runner in the world, proving it again in his favourite marathon in Chicago. And one day he says he'll represent the United States in a major marathon. He'll represent them in the World Championships or the Olympic Games, and he'll prove to them thank you to his country. Now, Paula Radcliffe, still operating faster than any woman has ever done before. But we saw Canucci just fade away in that headwind in the last stages of this race. Can Paula Radcliffe? She's much further ahead of schedule for a world best time than the men were. And can she keep it going? Can she keep operating like this? This race has come so far. In 30 years, the women weren't even allowed to run the marathon. And here we are, witnessing a race faster than we've ever seen before, approaching the 2 hours 18 time for a women's marathon, which is absolutely fantastic. And the great news for us, it's being done by Paula Radcliffe, who looks as though she's on the way to finishing a season the like of which we've never seen before by a British athlete. Paula Radcliffe, winner of the London Marathon, winner of the Commonwealth Games and the European Championships, winner of the World Cross Country. She's got to be the favourite athlete in the world at the moment. She's going to be the World Athlete of the Year, whatever happens here today. But what's going to happen here today, we looked like, and we're missing the split times over the last couple of miles, but through 23 miles in 2 hours and 27 minutes, which is under 2 hours 18 pace, and I'm sure Paula can keep that going, and I think this is going to be the fastest marathon we've ever seen by a woman.
It will be a popular win either way. Endereba, who's won the last 2 years, a big favourite here in Chicago, but they've all loved having Paula in their presence. She's charmed them over. The American press, Brendan was saying, they've been writing about her all week. And they've been getting to know all about the girl from Bedford. A lot of them were surprised to know that this long, illustrious career started 10 years ago at the World Cross Country, or World Junior Cross Country Championships in Boston. I guess not too far away from here. But another chapter being written in the career of this woman here today. Is it to be a world best? Every possibility of that happening. She just has to try to maintain this pace, the pace that she's set right from the start. She went from the gun today. There was no hanging around. She came at this with intentions to run fast. We didn't know how fast she could go. I don't think she really knows how fast she can go. And she had to get rid of the challenge of Endereba first of all, and certainly was able to do that as she enters now the Canucci Tunnel and the 25-mile mark being passed very, very shortly. Bren, with some news of the previous mile up to 24.
Well, 24 miles, Paula Radcliffe, 2 hours, 5 minutes and 34 seconds, which means that she's got to run the last 2.1 miles in 13 minutes. Steve, you and I could probably do that. So I think we're looking here, clearly the fastest marathon we've ever seen by a woman, by Paula Radcliffe, in a course that suits the runners as we've seen before. She's approaching the 25-mile point. We won't be able to get this official, but the time through 25 miles is going to be around 2 hours and 11 minutes. So 2 hours 11 for 25 miles. So Paula Radcliffe has got 7 minutes to run the last 1.1 miles. And you can safely say that Paula Radcliffe doesn't ever run that slow. Paula Radcliffe never runs a mile in 7 minutes. She's not going to run this last mile of the Chicago Marathon in 7 minutes. So we are looking at the fastest marathon in history. And Paula Radcliffe is the athlete who's obliging us. The time she's got to beat is 2 hours, 18 minutes and 47 seconds. and she's going to be a huge amount under that if she just keeps going, and there's no reason to believe that she won't keep going. There's a slight uphill, there's a slight headwind, but this is the best marathon performance we've ever seen by a woman, and I'm so thrilled that it's Paula Radcliffe that's doing it, and she knows all about it. She's working very hard. She wants every second of this time. She knows she's going to do it. She'll be getting information from the course side. She's approaching 2 hours and 12 minutes. She's got 6 minutes to break the world record, and that is really, really going to happen for Paula Radcliffe today.
Well, the official time we've just been given for 25 miles was 2 hours, 10 minutes, 54 seconds. And as Brendan keeps telling us, that is going to be a quick time, a projected time of 2 hours 17 and 10. That would be a phenomenal amount to knock off the world record, 1.5 minutes to knock off the world record. And that would be, well, you run out of superlatives, don't you, for Paula Radcliffe? But for her today, just underlining her huge potential at this event. She won't be thinking about it now. There's a $150,000 bonus for breaking the world record. That will be the last thing on her mind at the moment. She just wants to be recognized as the world's best. She's recognized as one of the world's greatest athletes, but this will be the first time for her that she'll be able to say nobody has done anything like this before.
Well, in 1954, Jim Peters set his 4th record in the marathon when he ran 2 hours, 17 minutes and 39 seconds. And can you believe that less than 50 years later, we're looking at a woman who is going to run faster than Jim Peters ever ran. And it looks to me as though Paula Radcliffe is going to run the first sub 2 hours 18 marathon. But she knows what she's doing. She knows how much she wants it. And I remember in 1992, 10 years ago, we came to Boston and we watched Paula Radcliffe, an unknown young athlete, win the World Junior Championships. It's been a long road for Paula Radcliffe. At times it's been a glorious road, and at other times it's been a difficult road. But at no point in that career did Paula Radcliffe ever doubt the fact that she could become one of the great distance runners of all time. And we are now witnessing one of the great distance running performances of all time, as we see a very tired Paula Radcliffe running faster than any woman has ever run before. Hats off to Paula Radcliffe. She's even taken her own hat off in recognition of that. And there she is. We're so excited here. This is absolutely glorious. The crowd on a sunny day, a cool day in Chicago. They were blessed by the fact there was no wind, and Paula Radcliffe has now only got herself to keep going. She just encouraged herself over the last couple of 100 meters. Paula Radcliffe, 2 hours 14 minutes there. It's going to be a colossal performance whatever happens here, but look at it. Paula Radcliffe charmed us in Manchester when winning the Commonwealth Games, delighted us in Munich when she won the European Championship in the 2nd fastest time ever, just over 30 minutes for that. She won the World Cross Country at the start of a difficult couple of weeks, and then London Marathon, her debut in the marathon was absolutely brilliant, but this, probably her best performance ever. She'll debate that with us later, but for the moment, let's just enjoy Paula Radcliffe working hard as usual, the head bobbing as it does on occasion, working so hard up that incline, and then when she levels out, she'll see the crowd, she'll see the finish, and knowing Paula, she'll keep going right through the line because she wants every second of that, and this is one tremendous performance. It was predicted by Ingrid Christensen that she could run under 2:18. She dismissed that slightly, but it looks as though she's going to be well under 2:18 for the fastest marathon ever.
Less than 2 minutes of running for Paula Radcliffe left. Less than 2 minutes before she writes herself into the record books. That style that's become so familiar, the bobbing head, the arms picking up, the knees driving forward. One of the toughest sports person you'd ever want to meet. She just knows no bounds, knows no limits, sets targets that others wouldn't even dare to set. Paula Radcliffe rising to the occasion once more. The crowd are going absolutely berserk in the home straight. They can sense what's in store. They know they're watching a piece of history in the making. She's come to Chicago to show them what Paula Radcliffe is all about. They didn't know in America before today. They certainly do now. The Commonwealth champion over 5,000 meters. The European champion over 10,000 meters. The world champion at cross country. The world half marathon champion. Who knows what titles are in store for Paula Radcliffe in the future over the marathon. But today in Chicago, she has completely obliterated the world record time. 2:18 and 47, the old record. Paula coming home. 50 minutes to go. Paula Radcliffe once more wins, but this time it's a new world record. Smashed it to pieces. Smashed it to pieces, Paula Radcliffe has 2:17.17. And Brendan has said it on more than one occasion that that is the best piece of running you have ever seen from anybody. But for Paula Radcliffe, it just gets better and better and better. And the first to congratulate her, Carrie Locke. Well, Brendan, I cannot believe what we're seeing from this woman. I cannot believe the year that she's had. I can't believe that every time she goes to the well, she digs deeper and deeper and deeper, always coming up with the goods. Now, finally, perhaps she can go away and have a rest after one of the most impressive performances I've ever seen.
That was the greatest piece of distance running we've ever seen, Steve. 2 hours, 17 minutes, 90 seconds faster than anybody's ever run before. She averaged 5:14 for each mile there. That was one colossal performance. Congratulations to Paula. We've been watching this coming for an awful long time, and finally it's there.
Well, Brendan is going to go down and try and get a few words with Paula as quickly as we possibly can, but just let's give you some of those stats. As he was saying, a new world record, 2 hours, 17 minutes and 17 seconds. She ran the second half almost a minute quicker than the first half. She did it again. We said, could she do it? Could she possibly do what she did in London off that very, very quick early pace? As we see Endereba coming into the last 100 meters or so. Endereba's run a very fast time as well. She's going to be inside 2 hours and 20 minutes. She'll not know how fast Paula ran, but she knows she's been in a race with the greatest marathon runner I think we've yet to see. Her world record is gone, but she's conducted herself well, taking second place there. But going back to Paula's times, 69 minutes and 5 seconds for the first half of the race, 68 minutes and 12 seconds for the second half. Just almost defies words.
Unofficially for Catherine Endereba, all 5'2", 98 pounds of her.
She came here to Chicago with all of the talk about world records. She was trying to play it down, but we all knew, I think, that she had in her mind that she could run quick here if conditions would allow. She was in the shape that we know she's been in all year, maybe even better over the last couple of months. And she set this target to come here to Chicago and do something special, and that's what we've had from her today. Congratulated by the former world record holder now, queen of this marathon distance now, Paula Radcliffe. 2 minutes behind her, Endereba. That's a long way. And when you consider that Endereba as one of only 2-3 women to have ever run under 2:20. She's done hear it again today, but nowhere near Paula Radcliffe. Well, for Paula, if we didn't think it all ready, very difficult to look at what anybody else has done in the world of sport this year to top what Paula has done. Well, he's managed to get down there quickly. Let's hear what Paula's got to say with Brendan.
Really well. I mean, I went through the first half feeling good. And everyone said the second half was faster, so I tried to kick on then, and I felt good, and then I just went through a really bad stage, about 22, 23 miles. I really needed the toilet, and I thought I was going to have to stop. And then it just went off, so I was all right, but it was that 5:22, I was thinking, oh no.
But what about it? I mean, the crowds are great, the race was great, you had great company and support around you. I mean, you averaged 5:14 for each of those miles all the way through.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to hold it back during the first half, and then the second half pushed on a little bit, and I was running with a group of US guys who I think were trying to get their time, so that was helping me And then I just tried to keep pushing on. But I was really surprised how much support there was out there for me. There were so many British people and flags out there, so hopefully the others had good runs too.
The crowds helped you on the way then?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there were a few quiet spots, but it was good. I thought it would be really quiet after London, but it wasn't at all.
Can we have a word with Gary? He's down there and he just whispered in your ear. He said, I thought you'd run 2:17. Gary, come and have a word with us. You've been so supportive of Paula. She's got a little bit to thank you for.
She's got nothing to thank me
I've got
for.
a lot to thank him for. Yes, I have. He's taken a lot of stress this week as well, because it's been tough this week, and he's been ill, so he's been trying to stay away, and he's been in quarantine most of the week.
What time did he tell you you were going to run though?
They said him and Jara said about 2:17:30, didn't you?
She's been really enjoying this jumping out story, and she ran 2:21 here, so I said you can do 2:17:17.
2:17:17. Oh, you should have gone to the bookies, Gary, with that one. Congratulations, Paula. What a delightful performance. Such a pleasure to watch you. Remember 10 years ago when you won the Boston in the World Junior Championships? America's not a bad place for you, is it?
No, it's not at all, and they've really got me behind me on the course today.
Do me a favour. Have a rest.
Oh, I'm definitely having a holiday now. I'm chucking the trainers away till I get home.
Well done, Paula. Fantastic.
Thank you.
What a truly sensational performance in Chicago from Paula Radcliffe. I don't think I've ever sat there for, 2.25 hours going, what's going to happen to her? Well, we've got some news from elsewhere in sport around the country today. And the first thing to tell you is that the charges have been dropped against the Manchester United manager, Sir Alex Ferguson. South African police have dropped those investigations into alleged indecent assault in the case against Ferguson. And they've said there are no grounds for prosecution. UEFA have launched an investigation into the racist taunts directed against England's black players last night in Bratislava. A spokesman for UEFA said they were utterly appalled by the treatment of Emil Heskey and Ashley Cole. And England are to face Georgia in their opening match of the Rugby World Cup 2003. Georgia beat Russia to qualify for the first time and book their place in Australia next year. Well, let's go back to Brendan Foster in Chicago, because I'd love to talk more about that performance from Paula Radcliffe. There's a very good article, actually, in the Sunday Times today, big double-page spread, all about the hours that Paula puts in every single day, not just into training, but into the recovery afterwards. And Brendan, her dedication is unlike any athlete probably we've ever seen.
That's absolutely right. She's a great talent. She's got the talent to apply herself. She's got one weakness in her armory, and that is she hasn't got a sprint finish. But that is something you can see on the track. But what you can't see is the real talent of Paula Radcliffe is the fact that she's so willing to prepare for the marathon. She's so willing to sacrifice her life. It's her profession. It's what she does. She sleeps 11 hours every night. She sleeps a couple of hours in the afternoon, and that's a demanding routine. She trains so hard. She's in the gym a couple of times a week. She runs 140 miles, that's 20 miles every day. And really, at the end of the day, you've got to admire her. And I think we saw today, I remember describing Liz McColgan when she won the World Championships 10,000 as the greatest distance running performance by a British athlete ever. And I'm happy to say, and Liz won't even mind me saying that, but to see Paula Radcliffe run 2 hours 17 for a marathon, that is the greatest performance by a British distance runner in the history of athletics. And it's clear you can't do any better than that. It happened to be the marathon in Chicago. Hopefully in a couple of years' time, she might even supersede that by running it on the roads in Athens, or even on the track in Paris. But what a year she's had. Nobody's ever had a year like that before, and it's been such a privilege watching her. And I remember 10 years ago she won the World Junior Championships in America in Boston. What a 10-year ride we've had, ups and downs, but this was a huge up.
And Brendan, what's even more heartening and inspirational, inspiration is a word that's used quite often in sport, but for people at home watching who have tried to achieve something in their lives and possibly failed, to watch someone like Paula Radcliffe, who, just a year or two ago we were so used to her being beaten in everything, and now to see her winning everything, it just makes you believe in human nature once again, and in the triumph of, willingness and spirit over your body in some cases.
I think that's right, Claire. 9 times she tried to win the World Cross Country, she finally won it. 9 times she tried to win titles on the track, finally she won them at the Commonwealth Games in Manchester. And the marathon has been an event which has been so close to her, she's so at ease with the marathon. She looks as though, when you take away the burdens of having lap times and people around her and pacemakers, and she just runs freely on the roads. We've never seen the like of this one before, and we probably never will see again. And I'm so happy that I've been around to watch her doing it and share some of the bad moments and the good moments with her. And really, you know, the BBC Sports Personality of the Year, get your voting papers out and let's get those votes in, because she certainly deserves that.
I think that is probably sewn up, Brendan, that's for sure. I think Liz McColgan actually might have been the last woman ever to have won it. We'll just have another look at her crossing the line here in a new world record time for the marathon in Chicago. This is where the world record had been set before, but Paula Radcliffe absolutely smashing it. And seeing it again, Brendan, she's as fresh at the finish as she was at the start. You say she lacks a sprint finish, but in marathon running, she manages to pick up every mile.
Well, that's right, but funnily enough, just before I interviewed her, I just put my arm around her and congratulate her, and she said, "I'm tired today, you know."
Well, I was a bit worried when
So
when the Americans went to interview her, which they did, as she's literally leaning over double here. I thought, hello, she's going to be sick on American TV, and that won't look so good. But by the time you talked to her, she'd recovered.
Well, they've been describing her as a British eccentric here. They've got to take that one back now. She's certainly no British eccentric. She might have run with a silly hat on for half the way, but she ran like nobody's ever run before. And I was privileged to be here. It's been one of the great sporting moments in one of the great sporting cities in America, Chicago. What a day we've had, and what a couple of hours we've had with Paula Radcliffe. I mean, her debut in London was glorious, but this was absolutely brilliant.
And Brendan, just give me some sort of idea of what the American press coverage has been like. Have they been building her up the way our press have?
No, they haven't actually. The leading article in the Chicago Tribune, they were describing her as a true British eccentric, like somebody from Monty Python's Flying Circus, because of her bobbing head and the fact she wears long socks and the fact that she defends drugs and then gets attacked for defending drugs. And then she wore the blue hat today, and I thought, oh my goodness, that man's having a real field day with this Monty Python thing. But I was so pleased that she won it, and now they've got to admire her as a world record holder, as the best female distance runner we've ever seen at this distance. Catherine Dereba ran a good race in second place. She's the fastest marathon runner coming into the race that we've ever seen before. But Chicago is a great place for it. I don't think they really understand distance running very well in America, and they never really have, because track and field isn't a big sport here. But hopefully somebody will sit down and write some sensible stuff and then begin to realise that we've witnessed a little piece of athletic history here today.
Well, thank you very much to Brendan Foster and to Steve Cram, who've been our commentary team over in South Africa, and for those in Chicago. And for those of you that have been watching for the past couple of hours, you have just seen a true piece of sporting history and a world record set by Paula Radcliffe that, unless she breaks it herself, it'll take somebody else a fair few years before they can lower the mark that she has set.